Hello, everyone. My name is Justin. I worked for Turning Point USA for the past 2 years in their high school department. It was my favorite job so far that I've had, just because of how rewarding it is. The students who are involved are really passionate about our country. They're really passionate about learning how to defend their beliefs and how to defend America, our Constitution, and what has made our country so great. Charlie has done an amazing job of creating an organization with that as the sole focus, as promoting a love of country and patriotism in the next generation, as well as an understanding of what has made our country as great as it is. Prior to September 10th, we had about 2,000 chapters nationwide. From all my friends who are still actively field reps in the high school and college department, thousands and thousands of new students have poured in to start new chapters. So our organization is going to continue to grow. It's going to continue Charlie's message and Charlie's mission. I mean, Charlie started this when he was 18 years old. He started this right after high school. He built it from the ground up, and we originally were just focused on college. There was a need in high school. I think that this can grow even more, become even larger. There are 40,000 high school campuses across the United States, and with only 1,000 before this, and now thousands and thousands of more, there's room to grow all across the nation. And they work with high schools, they work with charter schools, they work with homeschool students, and so I'm incredibly proud to have worked for this organization, and I think that these young people are going to be around for a very long time. They're going to shape the future of our country, and they're going to be in great hands with the Turning Point USA organization. So thank you so much.
Would you join with me in a moment of silence for Charlie and his family, for our country? Thank you, and because we know there's a living God, Charlie is in a good place right now. And we're thankful that all of you are here in a good place right now. And you're going to have a good time, because I know Charlie wouldn't want anybody to be moaning and groaning, but to be happy, to be alive, to be an American, and to, even though at my age, feel like you're only 20 years old and you're just ready to get your fight going. So I want to introduce our MC today. He's a great guy. He's a heck of a patriot. He's done a lot to support Settlement Project from the beginning. And he's one of my best loving friends, although he can't play golf for beans. But his name's Ray Martin. Let's wake up.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Let me try it again. Good morning, everyone. Yeah, great. We're going to have a short little presentation on the Settlement Project. Keith, do we have that video ready to go? But first, let's join together in the Pledge of Allegiance. And why don't we all stand?
You're going to recite it? You starting us?
Mayor Keith McCarthy.
All right, we all have our hands over our hearts. Let us begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. God bless America.
Okay, well, are we going to show the video?
If you're ready.
Yeah, I think we're ready. Thank you, Jack. Welcome, everyone, to the Settlement Project. And the title of our event today is, let me take off my glasses because I'm nearsighted, is Eliminating Woke Indoctrination from Our Schools. And we have really with us an all-star panel today. Thank you, everyone, for coming down here. Let's give them all a big applause. Welcome. I know that Jack has worked tirelessly to contact. Maybe many of you are going, oh no, when you see your phone light up and it's Jack Ashworth again, you're going, oh no, again. But really, in all jest, it's such an honor to have you all here. Thank you for taking the time. Everyone's time is extremely valuable. And I think we also have an all-star audience as well today, and I want to thank you all for coming as well. So what we're going to do is start out with a short, maybe some of you are wondering, well, what is exactly the settlement project? I know some of you, like Brenda, has been here from day one, and helping and organizing and participating in the settlement project events. So what we'd like to do is just show a short video. Are we ready, Keith? Can we show? All right. Sorry for the panelists. Oh, yeah. By the way, panelists, the good thing, if I can borrow that for just a second. Panelists, the chairs are on wheels, so feel free to just roll around so you can see the screen. Sorry you're sitting so close.
I may need that for the sound.
Okay.
The goal of the settlement project is to rescue America.
Can you hear this? Well,
Authoritarianism that abuses power and deprives citizens of our God-given human rights. The second goal of the settlement project is to restore a civil, constructive, honorable culture in America, where people who differ can converse, respect one another, and seek ways to build a happy, healthy culture for all, rather than a culture consumed with rage, vengeance, violence, and destruction of morals and decency. In the years since founding the Settlement Project, our leaders and scholars developed a profound and incisive education system that harmonizes people of conscience, a teaching that reveals the origins of current American breakdown and provides a compelling and broad-based alternative. Additionally, we work in close partnership with major figures and groups who expose the determined work of the CCP, or the Chinese Communist Party, to dismember and defile America's future. This teaching, called WIC education, woke, ideology, critique, and counterproposal, traces the history of the modern period from the French Enlightenment contribution to the gruesome reign of terror, through the Marxist-Leninist contribution to a century of global genocide, up to the present moment in which the same progressive thread and spirit again threatens human life. Elements of today's dark side influence include postmodernist desecration of human purpose and meaning, theories of rage, vengeance, and violence, attacks on the basis of human identity, and the divisive nihilism of identity politics. In response, WIC education counters each era of division with the providence of light and positive purpose that eventually prevailed. The counterproposal embedded in the WIC story provides clear new ground for people of faith, goodwill, and conscience. From this, we can ally with friends and others to recover a bright future for America and for all people in the world to be able to live as free and equal.
Okay, what I'd like to do you can see your agenda. If you open your little folders, you can see the agenda for today. We have a fantastic panel here. And for the panelists, there's two ways that you can make a presentation. If you'd like to, you can come up here to the podium, because this works for the whole, what's that?
invite Joshua for the invocation.
Oh, yeah. Okay, how could I forget? The invocation. We have to start with prayer. I'd like to invite up Pastor Joshua Holmes to come up and offer our invocation. Let's join together.
Please bow your heads with me. Beloved God, we are so grateful that we can be together, that we have our life. God, we believe in our nation. we believe that this nation is meant to be the lighthouse to the world. And I pray that we through our unity, we can realize that. God, you are calling on each and every one of us as your sons and daughters, God, to be change makers in this world. God, this nation was founded on fundamental godly principles. And God, we will be the ones to ensure that it maintains those fundamental godly principles. And God, that is the kind of light we want to shed to this world. So God, we pray for the children in our country. We pray that they can discover what we have come to know in our lives. God, if there is no freedom outside of you, there is no freedom outside of your truth. There is no freedom outside of the responsibility that each and every one of us hold to our families, to our nation, and to the world. God, there is no freedom without victory. God, and so we stand here knowing all of this. And so please help us to come together as one. We pray for the Kirk family. God, we pray for his children. And God, no one in their life should have to go through such experience. And so God, we pray for the children of this nation. And God, I know you are working in mighty and mysterious ways. But God, it's not mysterious to me right now. I see it in this room. So God, open our heart, open our mind, and allow us to be led by our original heart. God, that is bringing us always closer to you. I offer this prayer in attendance to our Holy Mother Hun. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Okay, thank you. Let's just take 1 minute before we start introducing our panelists. Let's just take 1 minute, turn to the person on the left and the right of you, and let's just make introductions. We're a family here, so let's just say hello to one another.
Hi, Sonia. Nice to meet you, Sonia. Sonia Shaw. Yes. This is Leandra. Hi. Nice to meet you, Ray.
Thank you. You came from a long distance, right?
I'm actually not too bad an hour. I was in Chino.
All right, well,
Started taking us to somewhere else and we're on the freeway and it said 2.5 hours and I'm like, the directions are wrong, so I'm rerouted.
Oh, thank goodness.
Yeah.
Well, on a Saturday morning, it shouldn't be too bad, right?
No, well, the what is it, the 57 is
Yeah, yeah.
not too bad.
So I have your little bio now.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And you guys want me just to talk 10 minutes just about the story and get people involved? You never really said.
Well, you know what? It's worth thinking to know about your story.
Okay, okay.
Not to,
just so I know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to know what you've been doing.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm going to read some of your bio.
Okay.
And you can come up here and stand up here if you'd
Oh,
like.
okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Continuing on with our agenda, I'm going to introduce our first presenter of the day, Sonja Shaw. And I'm going to I have everyone's bio, so as our presenters come up, I'm going to read their bio because I think it's important we understand we have all, our panelists here, many of them are on the front line, have been on the front line. Amen? And I know and many of you in the audience are on the front line. So we want to know what everyone is going through. That's really what the settlement project is about, is we're connecting with one another. So appropriately, I would like to just share a little bit about Sonja Shaw before she comes up and makes her presentation. And by the way, for all the panelists, I do have a handheld microphone, so you can either speak from your position at the table or you can come up and present at the podium. Okay. Sonja Shaw never planned to run for office. A Chino native who overcame a challenging childhood, she was content as a soccer mom, cheering on her two daughters from the sideline. But when California sidelined parents during debates over closures and mandates, she could no longer just stay as a spectator. Sonja's resilience and faith drove her to fight for families, starting out by attending local school board meetings to advocate for her daughters. Sonja fought for her children to grow up Sonja's fight for her children grew into a movement. Elected Chino Valley Unified School Board president in 2022, she championed, amen, congratulations. She championed parental rights, winning landmark battles against Sacramento's extreme policies, including a lawsuit from Attorney General Rob Bonta. Backed by countless parents, she proved families, not politicians, should steer education. Now running for California State Superintendent in 2026. Sonia aims to fix a system where only 46.7% of students read at grade level, transforming schools into launch pads for dreams. A wife and mother guided by faith, she's committed to fighting for every child's future. Let's welcome Sonja Shaw.
Thank you, thank you. It's such an honor to be here with you guys. Can I take this? Does this work?
You got it.
Okay. This testing. I just want to be with you guys, not behind that. But I'm going to start off by saying, first of all, I thank God for being here. I never know why God has me in places that He has me as I travel across California. I often land in places I didn't even know exist in California and meet people that I have never seen before and walk into a room, and then after I leave and I'm on my flight or on a long drive home, I think, wow, okay, that's why God, you know, I never question Him why, I'm just curious. So with Jack, I just want to thank you for being, you know, right in there. I mean, we had a rough week. My schedule's pretty packed. Luckily today, I just want to acknowledge my husband's in the back room. He often doesn't get to go with me because he's on the side of the soccer field himself still with both of our kids still playing, but it's a blessing for him to be able to be here, and the other time he was able to be at the convention. So yes, our family has decided to give God our yes every single day for the past 5.5 years. Of course, I have always loved Jesus, and I know growing up in a challenging childhood where a bus used to pick us up from the neighborhood that often parents weren't involved, and a lot of them were on drugs. They would pick us up, feed us, because they knew that we didn't probably have enough food in the house, and they would tell us about Jesus. So I knew Jesus at a very young age, and unfortunately through my childhood, fortunately, God was able to expose a lot of things, including different systems in California that were broken. I never realized till this moment recently that He exposed those to me at such a young age because He had a bigger plan for my life as long as I gave it to Him. So I'm very grateful, even though I was, you know, in the foster care system, I saw brokenness there. I've been, my mom became a heroin addict, so at a very young age I was taking care of my siblings. My dad came from Jerusalem. He was a Christian from Jerusalem. They were being slaughtered over there. He joined the Marines. Do we have any veterans in the room? I just want to thank you, law enforcement. Thank you guys. Thank you for keeping us safe. It's very important. I do want to say there's a whole different kind of fighters that have came to the fight in the last, 5.5 years that we're trying to fight for this great country. I still remember being a little child asking my dad, what are we? And he said, you're American. God bless America. I love America. And I'm American. And I've been here longer than you. So don't question me on who we are, where we come from. So that's always been instilled. I will say 5.5 years ago when the world shut down, I think God opened a bunch of, especially mama bears, some of them are sitting on the panel. I could see, 4 of them there that are in the battle, but he brought a bunch of us to the fight that I don't think any of this wickedness or evil was ready for. Not saying that there hasn't been people long in the fight, but like a lot of people that have been in it in a long time have been waiting for those of us to get into it, right? Those of us that realize we have a moral obligation to be involved in politics, our kids, the decisions being made about our families. These are things that constantly are being attacked by a whole different, and I hate saying left versus right, Republican versus Democrat. This is evil versus good. And it's there right in front of our face. So when the world shut down, look, I grew up always wanting to be a full-time mother. I wanted to be there for my kids. I opened a small business because we all know in California, to survive, you sometimes, and most of the time, need 2 incomes. I would wake up at 3 a.m., go set up at a local batting cage where I co-owned a small fitness business and trained women and ladies to be healthy in life because my mom wasn't healthy. And I always wanted that to be pushed down into my community and make sure they had help. And then, again, when the shutdowns happened, my business shut down. But I didn't shut down. I got involved because I saw a bunch of parents online And while I pulled my kids out, when a little bit of school choice, I see there's school choice back here, so please get behind the movement of that, and I'm sure they'll get into that later or go visit the booth. But with a little bit of school choice that was left in California, my husband and I both looked at each other and we said, this isn't going to work for our kids. They're athletes. They're used to being with people. For 2 months, we saw the horrors of what was going on behind the computer screen. Some of the activists, the union activists that were teaching our kids things that should have never been in the classroom. And we do have great teachers, but the unions are a very powerful thing that has taken over control. And we pulled our kids, and I would drive 45 minutes every single day to take them to a place that was, you know, going against Newsom's everything, just so my kids can be safe. But I knew that there was kids like myself when I was younger that were still not safe, or kids that parents had both working parents that couldn't be involved the way that we were blessed to be involved. And that's when I said, no, something has got to change. And I remember one dad in our small little group that we formed, of grassroots, you know, just an organization of parents that just started to look for other parents throughout California that had the same concerns. And the one dad said, you need to go to your school board meeting. And I said, what is the school board meeting? And they said it's a body of members that are elected supposedly by the community, you guys, right? And I'm like, oh crap, now I really messed up. I'm seeing a whole different situation with this. And I said, okay, let's go to the school board meeting. And I remember being in that room, scared, nervous, to get up to the podium and give my 3-minute speech on why we should have a voice at the table as parents. We were literally just asking for just a seat at the table. And then we quickly realized only 2 members out of our 5 had the best interests for families and kids. And we realized something needed to change. We went from moms being in the classroom, room moms, art mom, PE mom, anything that isn't funded, that is good for kids mom. And you know that's a lot in California mom, because at a $130 billion business that education is driven here in California, it's mind-blowing that only 47% of our kids can read, write, and do math. So you know there's a bunch of need in that classroom for the good teachers that are doing that. And I remember just getting up there and saying, at one point, you don't want to listen to us? You're funded by Biden's admin. We pulled their paperwork. We learned how to follow bills in Sacramento. We went to Sacramento. We got our 30 seconds to testify against bad bills. We did things that I never imagined we would have to learn or even do. But with that said, I remember the moment where I told that school board president at that time, you hurt our kids, we're done, we're not messing around with you, we're not going to just take your seat, we're taking both seats at that next election, and we did just that. We switched our board from a 2-3 to a 4-1 that year. You guys all know Assemblyman Bill. Yes. He's now appointed to the LA Attorney General, and you know, obviously Trump appointed him. Well, he brought a bill forward during his time as Assembly member when I first got in that I was excited to support and be the voice for our community, because we were always opposing bills, right? Boys, tampons in the boys' restroom, things like that California lawmakers are making that have nothing to do with education, driving ideologies, especially the gender ideology, the woke ideology, into the classroom with trainings, millions and billions of dollars being put into these things, and we see one bill. And it literally was from Bill. I always laugh, Bill, you brought the bill. That really shook up the nation. And it was just to notify parents if their kids wanted to identify as the opposite sex. I refuse to use the word gender, because we do not believe in their religion. We do not need to be tied to their religious terms. And it's if the kid wants to identify as another sex. And I said, we're bringing that forward. We're bringing the resolution, and we're going to support that bill. And we're going to be the voice of our community who elected us to be here. And we're going to fight to get that bill a hearing. Bill showed up to our school board meeting that day, and he said, I have good news, bad news. Bad news is they wouldn't give it a hearing. Remember, democracy, but it's only democracy if you agree with their agenda. And he said that the next thing that came out of his mouth was a pivoting point. It was a reflection point. He said, you can bring policy forward. And I said, okay, let's bring it forward. A coalition was formed. I know I have 8 minutes. Of mindful people all across California. I'm talking leaders, Moms for Liberty leaders, groups leaders. You're talking about attorneys. Everybody was bringing a mindful policy, working on this policy to bring it forward and hopefully launch a movement of just waking up people to realize there's something after their kids. And with that said, I was being told by the system that was brainwashed that this was going to be illegal, me, soccer mom, full-time mom, small business mom. I was reading pages by the JPA and attorneys that get paid a lot of money, and never once did they cite a law I would be breaking. They would just be telling me how I would be breaking the law, but never telling me what law I would be breaking. And that's when our superintendent realized himself too, he's been lied to. And I said, we're bringing that policy forward. Newsom got word, sent the superintendent down, the state superintendent. We have a history together because he came and walked with my opponent. Yes, the soccer mom that he came and walked against because he said if she wins that seat, it's going to change things. And obviously they say for worse, but I believe in my heart God obviously put me there for good. And we brought that policy forward. And when we brought that policy forward, Tony came, he came to the podium, had his 1 minute, and I told him exactly what he needed to hear. And I had no idea God was going to take that moment and send it across the nation, and eventually send me across the nation to tell the story and try to wake up parents to get involved in their kids' education and in their lives and start running for these seats and no longer let these unions and special interests control things. And we were sued within 5 weeks of passing that policy that night, and God provided us an attorney. Multiple attorneys actually emailed and asking to take our case free of charge. We got an attorney, we fought the good fight in court. I also now got to see a broken system in court. The judge was more worried about a man's feelings than he was about the legality, but we did win that kids do not have a right to privacy from their parents, and they were hell-bent on saying that, right? Yes. We brought in policies that focus on education, taking the pride flags, all those kinds of flags that do not belong in there. The ideology's out. We're putting out fires every single day in our own district. My heart hurts, but we need to continue to link arms. This is why you see most of us, even Mary Barky, all of these beautiful ladies, and I'm meeting all of you guys. God's bringing us together for a bigger plan. Never in a million years did I think we would be here, that I think I was going to be here fighting the good fight. But there's a bigger plan. As we unite, as we have these meetings, as we come together, there's a plan for us to take back not only those seats, but that table, and give it to people who have the best interest for our kids. I'm going across California as a blessing. We can get more people to rise up with the story of just letting them know you've been brainwashed to think that those are their seats. Those are not their seats. Those are our community seats, and we need to have leaders in there that have the best interest for our families. We're going to do it. We're doing it now.
All right.
Yes. And with that said, I am just so grateful to be here. Please keep giving God your yes. We're going to take back California, and that state superintendent seat, along with school board seat, will be owned by the people who love our children and our families. Oh, yes, yes, yes.
Let's have, I asked Sonia if she could give her website where if anybody would like to contribute, they could go to contribute. Please let us know.
www.shaw, F-O-R, not the number 4, ca.com. Please share it. Or even local elections that you're walking for, please take the minute if you want to post it Facebook. That's how we really get the word out. It's just all of us doing the work out there. Yes.
Great. Thank you very much. Okay, real quick, if anybody uses the restroom at any time, of course, the restrooms are right outside here. And also for the panelists, again, if you'd like to, I'm going to just leave this on the table, so if you'd like to speak from your chair, you can, or like Sonia, you came up here and gave a great speech talk, walking around with our audience, you can come up here to the podium. So I'll just leave it. Okay, our next panelist is Candy Olsen, and I'll read Candy's bio. Founder and Executive Director of Awaken Redlands, a nonprofit organization established to elect local city and school leaders with traditional values. Candy was elected to the Redlands Unified School Board in November of 2024. Since assuming office, she has brought forward Sonja Shaw's Save the Girls Sports Resolution, which passed, fantastic, drafted and brought forward an American flag policy, which passed, and spearheaded with fellow board member Wilson a sexually explicit book challenge policy, which passed, and a ban on sexually explicit obscene curriculum, which also passed. Fantastic. Let's welcome Candy Olsen.
Like that? I think I'll stand up too. It's hard to follow an act like Sonia, but I'll try. Sonia's story and my story are very similar. Stand over here. I'm a nurse, a mother of 5, been married for 20 years, and we were kind of doing the same thing in separate areas. I'm from Redlands, and we had a bunch of moms. It all started with the COVID mandates. You know, that's when everyone kind of woke up, what's happening here. Then that led to discovery of the ideological flags in our classrooms, which led to the discovery of the obscene books in the classroom library, in the classrooms and the libraries. And so we had a lot of frustrations as a community and moms with our school board, but then really what happened was when we found these really sexually explicit books that really even make me uncomfortable. It's very difficult to read. We launched a series of book challenge complaints, and we went through this 9-step burdensome process that took about a year and spent $20,000 of our district's money, which we found out later. And ultimately went through several committees, went all the way up through an appeals committee, and then to the board. And the board made the final decision, we're going to leave all of this sexually obscene material in the school libraries. That was really the turning point for me personally, and I said, we can no longer allow these people to be in charge of our children. It's absolutely despicable that grown adults who have children would allow very damaging material for our kids to read and have access to. So that was really when the focus shifted from complaining to the school board to actually replacing the school board. And then we started filling seats. The organization that we banded together became a real nonprofit, started flipping seats in the city, and this last election we flipped the city council and the school board in Redlands. So that's what happens when moms get mad and you're hurting the kids. Because the flags and the this and the that and all of these things just kind of were building and building with frustration, but then when you just absolutely, it's just like literary pornography that you're allowing the kids to read. So that was just the breaking point. So then right out the gate I ran on three policies in my election. It was the flags, the books, and parent notification. So once we got in, like Sonia said, linking arms is huge. With now that we've networked with all of these school boards in our areas, we didn't know, anything. Temecula's experience is what really helped us, because Temecula flipped their board, a couple years ago, and then right out the gate, their first meeting, I want to say it was their first meeting, they put a flag policy in place. Well, that got rescinded because the unions weren't collaborated on with, they weren't negotiated. And so we learned about the PERB board. We had no idea that PERB existed, Public Employment Relationship Board, and they're highly left-leaning, side with the unions all the time. And so we learned from their experience that because Temecula didn't consult with the unions, then they had this PERB complaint, and then their policy was rescinded. So we right away, we started negotiating with the unions, and this is actually a really good story from our personal experience, because then school boards that you guys know can take this and learn from the experience, just like we learned from Temecula. And we negotiated in good faith, but they have a lot of stalling techniques, they have a lot of tactics, and then they would just bring forward miscellaneous questions that don't have anything to do with the impact to the classroom. So finally, our lawyer filed a letter of impasse, which they got very scared of because it was showing that they were not negotiating in good faith. And so both union presidents signed the letter saying, we do not agree with your policies, but you go ahead and pass them. And the only thing is we reserve the right to negotiate impact to the classroom later. And so it was a huge win. We were so excited. We're not going to get sued. This is great. We're not going to go to PERB. Well, we just got a PERB complaint filed for our flag policy. So it's interesting, and it'll be something you guys want to follow through and check up on the status, because it's an unprecedented complaint. They were negotiated with regarding impact. What their complaint is that they did not be able to negotiate the words of the policy, which is completely unprecedented. There's never been a PERB complaint like that before. It's never been heard in the PERB court. So we'll see what the judge thinks of it, if they even hear the issue or if they throw it out completely, because the point of that board is to assess like impact and whether the unions were negotiated with their teachers. So that's, we're waiting for our PERB date, so follow me on social media. You can figure out whatever became of that, or you can reach out to me. I'm easy to get a hold of. And so that is one policy, and that's the status of that. We also have the books, like I mentioned. We got that passed. So far, we have not had any complaints on it because it doesn't affect the teachers in their classrooms. So it's the library books that it affects, and we're just waiting. It's passed. We just have to start having people challenge books to get them out of there. But the dirty little secret that they don't tell you is, like, immediately after we passed this policy, the president of the union sent out a letter to all of the teachers saying, you can have your banned books in your classrooms. So in their teachers' classrooms, they can have their banned books. Right, so they're sneaking. It's just incredible the amount of sneakiness and deviousness, that will come up out of this, because they really want your kids to read this obscene material. So we're talking about that, and we'll probably have some type of opt-out. The easiest, there's a lot of different possible solutions to that issue, and to avoid going to PERB again regarding that, wasting more money on lawyers. Probably the easiest solution would be to opt your child out of your teacher's classroom library. And along those lines, Mahmoud versus Taylor was a great case, because that opened up all kinds of things. Previously, we have books in our library that, because of California law, we have this book called Jack, Not Jackie that's in our school, which a lot of other books too, that are not obscene, they're not sexually explicit, they're not graphic, they're not vulgar, and they teach like transgenderism. And this Jack, Not Jackie is meant for first graders, and it's in our libraries, and it's about a little toddler thinking she's a he. And the sibling, the book goes on the tale of how the older sister's so happy to have a younger sister, baby sister to play with, but the little toddler is like barely walking when the toddler believes that she's a boy. She's Jack, not Jackie. So we have these type of stories in there, and due to California law, you cannot get rid of them, regardless of how many people complain about it, because they're a protected class. So with Mahmoud versus Taylor, now we know if you object, you have a religious objection to any type of theme, storybook, ideological issue, you can opt your child out. So now we just finalized our opt-out, and it looks like I'm done speaking, but I just got the timer. But it is very exciting, because now we've filled our form. We have our form ready to go. We'll be distributing it, and any parent can opt their child out of pride clubs, any kind of club. If there's a Satan club that comes along, you can opt out, make sure your child doesn't attend. You can opt out of LGBTQ themed books. So that would include all of those books in the library, regardless of whether they're obscene or explicit. So that is it for my time. I appreciate you having me. I was asked to speak about the woke policies, so I gave you probably the two biggest things that we've been working on in my time allowed. And thank you so much for everything.
Thank you, Candy. And by the way, just a real quick comment for the board, for the panel. The gentleman here holding the table tennis, the ping pong racket. It's Keith McCarthy. He's not practicing for the Olympics. He's actually our timekeeper. So you might see him. Touche. Okay. And by the way, thank you very much for these presentations. What do you think so far? This is also being, thank you, Jack. This is being live streamed, by the way. There's hundreds, maybe thousands of people watching. And this was all brought to us by the Epic Times. Let's have a little hand for photography. Okay, our next presenter will be Leandra Blades, and I'll read shortly Leandra's bio. Leandra is a retired police officer and has been a trustee at the Placentia Yorba Linda Unified School District since 2020. She stands for conservative values and parents' rights. She led the Placentia Yorba Linda Unified School District to enact a critical race theory ban and parental notification policy. She has been a member of the Republican Party Central Committee since January of 2021 and is currently serving her second term from 2024 through 2028. Leandra is married and has 3 sons. Let's welcome Leandra.
I'm happy to be here. Like I said, or like you've said, I have been on a school board since 2020. I won my election. And same as these ladies, what is a school board? But I actually knew what a school board was because prior to 2020, I'd actually helped a couple elections, a city council election, just kind of like running social media, doing some background stuff for the candidates, and my dad had run for school board, so I was a little bit more familiar with what people were finally asking me to do. I was known in Yorba Linda as the Trump rally girl, and that's kind of how I was found. Was I was the Yorba Linda chair for the Gavin Newsom recall, and I was on the social media pages, and they were kicking me off because I was just simply telling them where a Newsom recall table would be. So I said, well, it's easy to make a social media page, so I'm going to make a social media page. And so I made a social media page called Yorba Linda Uncensored. And all I was trying to do was just let them know where my team was, because it was in the middle of COVID. Our kids were all at home. You know, if you're going to go out and spend 2 or 3 hours of your day, you want to be, you know, efficient. So I started this page, and all of a sudden, it just exploded. And there was all these people on this page. And I started going to Huntington Beach, you know, Open California rallies, and saw the Newsom, you know, recall things, and I said, you know, we can do that in Yorba Linda. We can do that for the North Orange County side. So I started doing that, and we started getting a lot of people. And so when we drew in a lot of people, it drew in a group of conservative parents who says, we need you to run for school board. And I said, oh, no. I don't run for school board. I do it behind the scenes for the candidates. And they said, no. And Linda Cohn right here, she is, I was victim to Linda Cohn. So I said yes, and when I said yes, I had a week to file, and so it's kind of just jumping in. And so I really think God put me in the position where it was. Why was I involved in people's campaigns, you know, and how was I able to jump that quick and know exactly what to do? I mean, you never know really your first time out what you're doing, but I knew enough to win. So down the school board, we had one person. We thought we had a majority. We thought all 3 candidates won. We didn't. Somebody was a little wishy-washy, maybe said stuff to get elected and then went the other way. So in 2022, we actually got a solid majority, and we just took off running. In 2022, before we got the majority, though, we were able to ban critical race theory. And so that was our first big deal. But I will say, I learned so much in the minority, and I actually appreciated the fact that I was in the minority to start with, because I learned so much when you have to fight. And when you have to research, and when you have to fight to get things on the agenda. You have to know policy, you have to know government code, you have to know all these things to be able to function, because when you have attorneys who are LGBTQ activists and hate conservative board members and speak out in their private time against conservative board members, you have a lot of things going against you. So that was kind of a saving grace for me, because I really learned in that time how to be effective. But not only that, how to expose. And that was like the most fun that I've had in a long time, was exposing what these board members were doing. I put things on the agenda that I wanted to have passed, knowing they wouldn't get passed, but it would expose these people for who they are and what they believe. Because I know the board that for 20 years there were 5-0 votes. All Democrat boards, all union bought, 5-0 across the board. And they probably never put anything on the agenda once in their life. It was just what the union wanted and what the district wanted. And so going in and like really kind of shaking things up was a big deal. So in 2022, we got Todd Frazier on the board, and so we were in the middle of looking for a new superintendent. So we hired probably our first conservative superintendent ever, who the union just absolutely excoriated him and his family and whoever came to work for him, which was just an absolute shame. Never came out that he was conservative, but you know what? What he did say is, I don't work for the unions, I work for the parents, I work for the students. I'm student-centered, I'm here for education, I'm not here for the politics. We have, exactly like Sonia said, these kids can't read at grade level and they can't do math at grade level. We are here to serve the students. Well, that is not a good union message, and so they tried, like mad to get him out. And so, unfortunately in 2024, we lost the majority through the lies of the teachers union, through the lies of the Democrat Party activists, through the Defenders Hub, through the same people. They're all working together. The people who recalled Madison Minor and Rick Ledesma Orange, they were working in our district. They're working out, they're everywhere. And they're just infiltrating all of these school boards, infiltrating city councils. And so you have to be aware of who you're up against. But when we did have a majority, I knew, because you just never know, you have to run with it. It has to be kind of like the Trump administration. When you get in, you gotta go. So we had a parental notification policy put in place. We had all kinds of things that we just were growing through. That was good for the students. We started our first district charter school. We started the Sports Institute. We had we were no longer declining enrollment because the parents loved what we were doing and what we were standing for. And I will say that in December 2024, when our board flipped back to, I'm in the minority with Todd Frazier, we lost 400 students from December because the parents absolutely are sick at what's going on in our district. But when you have these powerful Democrats and we have powerful people who aren't afraid to lie and aren't afraid to, slander myself, superintendents, anybody around, and there's not, because all they want is power back. This is kind of what you get. So that's kind of what I want to talk about. And I always like to, because I never know what I'm going to come here and say. And so sometimes when you can go, after people, you kind of touch on different things. So I would really, when you guys go, you guys need to go to your school board meetings and you need to go to your city council meetings. And you need to do PRAs. When you have community activists, they're out there yelling and screaming, you can basically bet that they are also emailing your board. I just found one that one of our board members, Marilyn Anderson, has been working with a prior district employee that's not at the county. She had been working with the Democrat Party activists to stop the Orange County Classical Academy from trying to come into our district. When you do these PRAs, you find so much stuff that's going on and what they're stopping.
What is a PRA?
Sorry. It's a public request. So it's called the Public Information Act. So you send it to the district and say, I want all these emails from board members, from the superintendent, from these community members who are yelling and screaming in these meetings. Because they're doing it to us, every single thing. So I always make sure when I do emails that I just give them all this information that they would never want public. So I might, email them.
That's a good strategy.
So I do. So I start just talking all kinds of stuff in this email. I know they'll never publicize it. So you have to be smart and you have to help your board members. But you have to know, too, who you're up against. Like, if you're union-backed, that is an absolute no-no. Like, I would never, ever take any type of money from any type of teachers union, anything. So if they have teachers union behind them, and what they started to do in 2020 and 2022, they started to deny that they even had, endorsed by the teachers union, and they took a step away. But go look in these elections, go look at their sheets, from the county that show all their donations. And so what our union was doing was they were giving money to candidates, but they were doing it out of their own, union funding. So it'd have to say on there, whatever the teachers union is, it would say, such and such, $10,000 for this candidate. So they weren't directly tying it into their campaign, but they're dishing out money for signs and for whatever under that. So I guess that's what my message is going to be to you guys, is you need to know who the enemy is. And it is good versus evil anymore. Because the stuff that they're bringing into the kids, even now, the fight that I'm in now, and I can't really speak much because it's an employee, but we have parents that are really upset that there's a teacher in our district who came in, who left in June as a man, and now he came back in August and says that he's a woman. And so, why I can't talk about the employee or the decision he's making. I can't stand up for the parents, and I can't stand up for the rights of the parents and the students. And so I'm fighting right now, and advocates for faith and freedom are coming on board because the district's not allowing an opt-out. And so even under Mahmood, even under all these things, even in Sonia's case, it says a child cannot be compelled to state something that is not true. They're still refusing to opt this child out. And the district would rather see the child get an F or an incomplete because the parent has to go to the district every day or go to the school and pull them out and then put them back in when the computer class is over. They would rather see that happen. So hopefully they'll come on board and they'll be able to help us out. But you just have to know what's going on in your classroom, and then you have to be able to demand to get in. You need to get into these classrooms. You need to be able to know who your children's teachers are, what the books are, what the curriculum is, and you have to really stand guard. And so one final thing too is, like, I'm going to say this. I've never felt more compelled because Charlie Kirk always said, "Here I am, Lord, send me." I didn't know that was the call. I didn't know this was God talking to me in 2020. I just was like, I love a fight. I love it. So I go, yes, let's do it. And so now I'm seeing what this plan is. I met Sonia in 2021 or 2022. You know, I met Mary Barky. Didn't even know who I was. Just took Linda Combs and said, I'm going to endorse her. So we've had, you know, all these things, but I think it's God bringing us all together. So everyone that's here today took time on this beautiful Saturday, that's not 95 degrees outside, to come in and hear us speak. So that needs to be our call. Here I am, Lord, send me. That's our call, and that's how we're going to win.
Thank you, Leandra. These presentations are so great. We'll have time for question and answers also, and we're about an hour away from a very special presentation given by Dr. Frank Kaufman, who is also the founder of the Settlement Project. So, our very next speaker is going to be Brenda Lebsack. Brenda has been with the Settlement Project from our very first little outing, right, Brenda? Thank you. So I'm going to read a little bit about Brenda. She has been in public education for 25 years. She has a Bachelor's of Science and Human Services from Cal State Fullerton University and a teaching credential from San Jose State University, an MA in Special Education from Chapman University, and an adapted PE authorization from Azusa Pacific. Brenda has taught alternative education, elementary education, middle school, and high school special education, and is currently a school board member of the Orange County Unified School District from 24 to 2028. Oh, it says Orange. Sorry about that. I'm just reading. Okay. She coaches girls, high school soccer, and field hockey. Brenda has been married to Reverend Dr. Mark Lebsac for 34 years, and they have 2 grown children, a son and a daughter, and a son-in-law and 1 grandchild. Before going into education, Brenda was a peace officer for Orange County Probation Department and helped write the AIDS prevention curriculum. She was a children's ministry director in various churches and produced a children's music CD, Surf to the Sun, SURF. She directed summer outreach programs in Orange County and Las Vegas for 9 years. That was recognized in the Orange County Register and Las Vegas Sun newspapers, and she was endorsed by the Nevada Housing Authority. Let's welcome Brenda.
Actually, that was a little older bio, probably from the first time when we met. I have 3 grandchildren now. I've been married 39 years now. So anyways, we can shorten it up next time. Okay. Anyways, I just kind of want to roll back a little bit. First of all, I'll start with what just happened since I'm in a school board member right now in Santa. What I try to do is say we have to follow the law, and the law says we have to inform parents. And so we have a gender identity policy. And I said, as a board member, I'm not even sure how these gender support plans are created. So don't you think that my constituents deserve in our district, and they couldn't say no because it's ed code, informed parents. So we did that in August, and we had a lawyer come in, and yeah, actually, I'm going to tell you, like, I was part of the teachers union, and I was a state delegate of the teachers union, in fact, and you know, even though there's a lot of really insane things coming out of the teachers union, there are a lot of great teachers out there. I have some friends in the audience that are great teachers. There's Sarah right there. But all I want to say is, you know, when we did this presentation in August, the former president of my local union called me on the phone and said, Brenda, I was the president of our union and I never knew this was going on. So the deception is very deep, okay? And a lot of it is intentional because a lot of people they just want to get into their little, I'm going to do my job and I'm not political, so I'm going to put my blinders on because nobody likes conflict, right? And there's a hostile environment going on, as we can see, and especially what just happened with Charlie Kirk, horrific. Let me tell you when my eyes were first opened. As a teacher, I decided in 2015, I was going through the empty nest syndrome, my kids were leaving home. I'm like, you know, I've been part of the teachers union a long time and I really don't know anything about it, so I think maybe I should go to a conference. So I looked up the conferences and I didn't see anything dealing with academics. It was like LGBT conference, human rights conference, social justice conference. I mean, there was a special ed conference, but I thought, well, the next one was LGBT, so I'm like, I'll go to that one. So I asked my union, they pay for everything. I get a plane flight to San Jose, I get free, beautiful Hilton hotel. Man, best food, great, you know, I'm having a good time. And then Eric Hines was the CTA president at the time. He gets up there and says, talks about the Friedrichs versus CTA lawsuit in the Supreme Court that's coming up and calls the plaintiffs a spawn of Satan. I'm like, what did I just hear? I'm part of Christian educators. I go to my hotel room, call the president of my Christian educator. I'm like, can you tell me about this Supreme Court case? Like, who are the plaintiffs? He said, we are. I'm like, we are? We were just called the spawn of Satan by the president of CTA. That is when my eyes were open. I'm like, this is war. This is not about tolerance. This is about putting target on people of faith, anybody who doesn't agree with their agenda, that we are going to be demonized. And that's when my eyes got opened. I started just going to more CTA conferences because I'm like, I gotta hear what in the world what is my union all about? I go to this one about human rights. The guy who was leading the workshop, Seth Bramble, he was the CTA lobbyist. And I raised my hand and I asked him, you know, because I used to teach in Las Vegas for a while, and I said, you know, one of my Mormon students, you know, a few years ago said he believes marriage is between a man and a woman. What should I say to that student in order to respect the diversity of my class? And his answer to me was, treat that student as though he said, black people should be burned at the stake. My jaw dropped. I could not believe what I just heard. At that point, I thought nobody is going to believe what I'm saying. And so I started telling my teacher friends, you've got to come with me. We've got to start recording. We've got to start providing this evidence to our teacher friends. There's been so many things that have happened, but let me just tell you about when I was a school board member in Orange Unified for 4 years. Well, during this time, we have, you know, the health framework came out. It's kind of like the blueprint for text writers, curriculum writers. This came out in 2018. I was reading it, and it's like a 350-page document. I noticed some things in here that I'd never seen before. Things like when they explained LGBTQ, they defined it as ever expansive, ever evolving. So basically no boundaries. The plus means plus. There's no boundaries. So during this time, they had 60 days of community input. I give a community input, and I asked CDE, the State Board of Education, can you please include one sentence exempting pedophilia or minor attracted persons as a future evolving sexual orientation? They refused. They would not do it. The other thing I noticed is it had a term I'd never seen before, which was spiritual abuse. And this term was defined as using religion to justify rigid gender roles. In other words, male and female. So I thought, oh my gosh. Now, spiritual abuse, what this tells me, the implications, is your belief alone. Not if you are hurting a child or physically or emotionally or neglect. It's going beyond that to just your belief is labeling you as dangerous and harmful. And so that's when I'm like, this is insane. Now, when I saw the curriculum from AB 329, this was passed in 2015 with Shirley Weber, and in 2015, it had to be implemented in 2016, but districts were slow at implementation. So finally, the ACLU had to, they were the ones that sponsored the bill, and they had to start kind of threatening districts, like with lawsuits. You have to do this, you have to put in the sex ed. Part of this bill also had in there that you could not notify or opt out kids from anything having to do with gender identity or sexual orientation if it's not related to HIV prevention and it's not related to reproductive sex ed. Okay, so basically anything having to do with kindergarten books, like you guys were mentioning, you know, some of these books that tell kids their gender can change like the weather based on their feelings, there's infinite pronouns, all this stuff. That's actually part of that law that was passed in 2015, okay? So what happened though, when I started seeing the sex ed coming in, and I saw, what? Pansexuality? Non-monogamous relationships? Gender fluidity? Like, I don't think parents know that this is what their kids are getting. So I started telling my community, you guys, you gotta look at this. This isn't like the sex ed we were raised with, right? They saw it, they were shocked. They came to the school board member in school board meeting in Orange Unified, and they started reading it out to our conservative board. We had a conservative board. Now, thank God, Rick Ledesma, when he heard it, he was in shock. He's like, we passed this? We didn't know this is what it was. He called an emergency meeting, and then at that emergency meeting, he stopped the implementation. 2 days later, ACLU shows up to our next board meeting and sends us each a letter threatening us, saying parents don't have the right to dictate what their kids are taught in public education. And ACLU said, in fact, your community is just a fringe community because 89% of California parents want this education in their schools. And I'm like, really? 89%? I don't even know what the word pansexual means. Like, what? So I look at their footnote, it's from UC Berkeley. I contact UC Berkeley and get a hold of the professor who did this 2007 survey that ACLU is promoting. He sends me the survey. There's not one question about gender identity. Nothing about all the controversy that's in these new sex ed curriculum that's being promoted by the State Board of Education. It's not in the survey. ACLU, now that's why in a recent article I said, no, opt-out's not enough. Opt-out is throwing us crumbs. Why? Because these laws, such as AB 329, is based on a false pretense. They lied to legislators who then thought they were representing parents and they weren't. Okay? Why did they do this? I think because they want to bypass the parents and the adults to go to the impressionable children to indoctrinate them so that they can then, change the mindset of society.
That's right.
But here's what happened after that. In 2020, what am I at? Okay. In 2020, people came together and said, we're going to pass a bill, Senate Bill 673, that says at least, let's say elementary kids, it has to be an opt-in, and you have to put it on your website, this district website, so that people know what they have an informed decision, whether they want to opt out or opt in. And this is only for K through 6, okay? 2020. We had so much support, okay? And in that time, I started an interfaith organization. So actually, I flew to Sacramento with the head of the Islamic Shura Council for Southern California. And they were for pro-parent rights. They don't want this taught to their children, right? And I was working with my Muslim constituents in Orange and all my interfaith constituents. And we had the Catholics, we had the Protestants, we had the Orthodox Jews, the Muslims. I even got the NAACP in Riverside, okay? When the clergy of, the black clergy who were in the NAACP, they said, we don't want this stuff. And I joined the NAACP in Orange County just to be a voice. Because what I'm finding is we've got these upper echelon people, just like the CTA, who are pushing these things down, but the grassroots people, they don't know what's going on. So we need people up here letting them know and informing them so they can revolt, okay? So anyways, when we did this, we had so much support, and then what happened is the ACLU came in. And again, they said, no, parents don't want that. Parents don't want an opt-in. They don't want to know or want it on the website. Really, ACLU? Okay, let's look at your research. And by the way, the American Academy of Pediatrics, CTA, PTA, all follows in the ACLU footsteps. And they all quote the same research. We looked up the research. You know what it was? It was a 30-year-old study from junior high, small sample of junior hires based on drug prevention. What does that have to do with elementary students' sex ed? Right? It's like apples and oranges. But I do not know, and I'm going to tell you, I just wrote an article and I submitted it last week to EdSource, which is the top education resource. I gave them with all the documents of the ACLU lies that are still perpetuated today in their toolkits and misrepresenting parents. Does it say 10 minutes?
It's confusing. He needs done.
Are you telling me done or 10 minutes? I'm so sorry. I kept thinking you're telling me 10 minutes. I'm done. We'll talk later. More. I'm sorry. You needed to bump. Okay. I'm like, that 10 minutes is not moving. I guess it's my website is brendaforkids.com with the number 4. brendaforkids.com.
Let's support Brenda. Thank you, Brenda. Brenda, that was spellbinding.
EdSource rejected my commentary.
Thank you, Brenda. That was definitely great. Okay.
That was very confusing, just so you guys know. I am confused. Because it says 10 minutes and you think like, oh, we have 10 minutes. I know. But I think he needs 10 minutes, you're done, right?
No, what does that mean, Keith, when you hold up 10 minutes?
Conclude means 10 minutes is up, please conclude.
So we kept thinking, you have 10 minutes, and we're like, okay, cool, we'll talk to him. I'm sorry.
Okay, moving things along is our next panelist, Mary Barky. Mary also was very special because she's been with us from the very first settlement project. Thank you, Mary. I'm going to just say a few words, okay? I'm going to read, it's kind of a long bio, but I'll shorten just a little bit. Mary is the director of CPC's, California Local Elected Officials, a membership organization that supports, advises, and educates local elected and appointed officials who stand for financial sustainability, government transparency, and results-driven governance. Mary is also the president of the Orange County Board of Education. Okay. I'm going to now go to the last couple sentences. A committed political activist, she has worked on 2 presidential campaigns and was a California delegate to her party's 2016, 2020, and 2024 national conventions. And by the way, Jack and I attempted one day to play golf, and then we went and watched the convention in the evening, and we were watching the convention on television, and then I said, hey, there's Mary right there. She was on television. So let's welcome Mary Barky.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. I'm also the victim of my dear friend here, Linda Cohn. So I was told that Linda Cohn approved me, I got to run for office. How lucky was I? And I was told that it would be the most boring thing I ever did, and that it would be more boring than watching paint dry. So that is not the case. I've never had a boring day or meeting in my life. But anyway, it's a great place to be. I don't know if you guys know, but the county board is a little different than districts. We don't do curriculum, we're an appeals board. So any charter school that goes before the district, usually they say no, 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 no. They get to come to us. Since Lisa Sparks and I flipped the board in 2018, we've gone from 14 to 46 charter schools at the county board of education. And as of next month, that number
number should increase by 2 because we saw 2 lovely charter schools last month and we'll be voting next month. So we're super excited. And the charter schools actually serve more than Orange County because they have no boundaries. So anybody can go to our charter schools. And there was one charter school that came before us. They were moving from Huntington Beach to Cypress. So that's in the Los Alamitos School District. The superintendent and superintendents are not always honest, as these guys know. They're usually part of the teachers union. He came to us and he said it's going to cost us $500,000 if you guys let that charter school move into our district. I said, really? So I brought up the charter leader and I said, how many kids from your charter are from the Los Alamitos district? 1. Where are the majority of your students from? Long Beach. So we were serving LA, where most of the students were coming from. So that just gives you an idea. Most people who go to a charter school are coming out of homeschooling, private schools and the like. They're not leaving the district and putting it in financial dire. So in any event, we also do inter-district transfers, so we get free kids from their zip code. Usually if you want to leave your district, they don't want to let you out. If you want to go to another district, they don't want to let you in. We say every single month when we get inter-district transfers that parents know what's best for their children, and we approve every one of them. So that's what we mostly do, is we free kids from their zip code. And the other thing I want to talk to you about is just running for office. We always need to be on the lookout for great candidates because you find better candidates than find you. The people that find you might not be running for the right reason. Sometimes they are. But if you notice somebody that you think would be a great candidate, it's never too early to start giving them great name ID, introducing them, getting them to places like this, start training them so that they take care of the kids and parental rights and all of that. At California Policy Center, I am the director of this CLEO project. They were talking about California local elected officials, but it's not only elected officials that are part of our network. You can be an activist, you can be a retired elected official, you can be a parent, but we do a bunch of training. So if somebody's interested in running, we have a candidate academy, and we have a PDF. It's also online. We have a great app right on your iPhone or your Android, so they can go through the academy. If they pass it, if they take it, we basically give them a certificate of completion. Because we're nonprofit, we can't endorse, but we do give certificates of the completion. And in the Candidate Academy, all 3 academies were written by Lance Christensen and myself. Most of you guys know Lance Christensen. He ran for the beautiful job that now Sonia is running for. And basically, the first thing we try and do in the Candidate Academy is talk you out of running, because it's not for the weak. And so if you pass the first few questions that are trying to talk you out of it, then we really want to help you run for office. When we first issued this in the last election, 400 people came to us, 200 people went through the academy, and I believe 104 of those got elected. And then once you get elected, we have the Leadership Academy, which has 16 modules. And you want to know about the Brown Act, go to Module 4. You want to know about public safety, go to Module 7. So it's basic governance for anyone. And it's great for candidates to learn basic governance while they're running. And then if you get elected and you say, oh my gosh, I got elected and I have no idea what I'm going to do, here is the Strategy Academy. So we have an academy for everything. And basically we have a 24/7 hotline. So if you're an elected official, people call us, oh my God, this is on the agenda, I don't know what to do with it. Or I get the agenda 3 days before the meeting, it's not enough time. Or the superintendent's doing this. So we have a 24/7 hotline. We've got a couple of young Republicans that actually run it, but if the question goes beyond their level, then it gets filtered to myself or Lance Christensen or somebody within the organization. So we really want to support great candidates to run for office. Again, we don't endorse them, we don't fund them, but we do try and educate them. So if you're interested, let me know. We also do things like we just had an ethics course, new law, effective January 2026. Every 2 years we need to take an ethics course. So we just held one in person, and we're going to be doing one remotely. And it's a lot more fun to do it in person or even remotely than going online, because I've done both, and it's a lot of fun. That's offered free to our CLEO members. We're also going to do some fundraising training coming up the end of this month, and every candidate we know has to raise money. So I don't know if anyone has questions. I don't want to just talk to hear myself talk. I haven't seen the little sign, so I'm not sure where I am. But I'm happy to answer questions or just leave more time at the end, or anything else you want to hear about. Jack, did I cover everything I was supposed to cover?
We're going to have questions and answers right after everybody speaks.
Okay, so I can yield my time.
That would be great.
What's that? Oh, we have, sorry, thank you. We have an amazing annual summit every year in Sacramento. You come up the first day. We have all sorts of great speakers. Last year, I got to do Q&A with Kevin Kiley, Congressman Kevin Kiley. We also had Bill Asaley. We had great legal minds. We had Lanza Zumi. And so there's great little breakout sessions. And then the next day, we take you to the Capitol, and you actually get to meet with legislators on both sides of the House. So we do great training for people on just educating them on subjects with nationally known leaders. and then teaching them and taking them to Capitol. So thank you. Yes, so we do that. Also, if you guys don't know, my friends over at Pacific Research Institute, Lan Tazumi, I don't work there, but we always work together. He's got a great event if you're a board member, December 2nd up in Sacramento. They will pay the one-night hotel so you can come up for CSBA and it won't cost your school district any more money. They'll pay that extra night, and then you get to get indoctrinated by Pacific Research Institute before you go to CSBA, which is a really good thing. And if you stick around and you're a Clio member, we're going to take you to dinner the night after. So after he trains you all day and gives you some wine and cheese, we're going to take you guys to dinner. Yeah, so thank you. I appreciate that. Anything else I forgot? All right. All right.
Thank you, Mary. That was great. Thank you very much. Okay, moving right along. We're going to move things along. So our next speaker is Larry Sands. And I'll just read briefly. Larry is a former classroom teacher, is president of a nonprofit California Teachers Empowerment Network, a nonpartisan, non-political group dedicated to providing teachers and the general public with reliable and balanced information about professional affiliations and positions on educational issues. And by the way, Larry has also presented before at Settlement Project events, which we really appreciate. Larry, he is also a staff member of the Cal Poly Institute. Let's welcome Larry. Thank you.
Everything you said was right. Cal Poly?
That's what it says.
Not me. Okay, I believe it says that.
It's okay, Larry.
Okay.
Cal Poly Institute.
No.
No.
But thank you. Or maybe it just happened when I was coming out here. Anyway, it's always a pleasure being here, and everybody's been so upbeat. Now I'm going to depress you, okay? The California Policy Center has reported that 45 of the 58 counties in California experienced a decline in traditional public school enrollment over the last decade. Over that time, statewide enrollment has decreased by 762,000 students. That is huge. Why is this happening? There are myriad reasons. I only have about 5 minutes, so I can't get into too many of them. But perhaps the biggest reason, or the most important reason, is parental dissatisfaction and disgust, exemplified by AB 1955. Yeah. I'm sure some of you know this, but anyway, this hideous legislation prevents school districts from requiring staff to inform parents if their child chooses to change their gender. No other state in the country has such a law. And it's called, I love the name, the Support Academic Futures and Educators for Today's Youth, or SAFETY Act. Great acronym. And it explicitly bans schools from enforcing any policies that mandate sharing, and I quote, any information related to a pupil's sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression to any other person without the pupil's consent. And this one is maybe even worse, if that's possible. AB 495, does anybody, some of you seem to know that, good, because it's the Family Preparedness Act of 2025, and it claims to offer compassionate solutions for immigrant families facing sudden separations due to deportation. And however, critics, which include attorneys and parental rights groups and faith-based organizations, warn that it dangerously redefines guardianship, removes parent rights, and creates legal loopholes that facilitate child kidnapping. This is a bad one, folks, and it's on Gavin Newsom's desk now. For the last I heard, he will probably sign. He never did anything right in his life. Aaron Fried is an attorney and president of a group called Our Duty USA, a parent-led advocacy group, calls AB 495 a child traffickers and kidnappers' dream bill. There's no background check, no welfare check, no court oversight, no verification. All you need is a piece of paper and some form of ID with no obligation, and the adult, will be handed over to that child will be handed over to that adult who can just walk away with your child. It is literally kidnapping. In addition to the legislature, we have individual schools doing horrible things. The Sage Creek High School in Carlsbad, California, not all that far from here, are seeking answers. Parents are seeking answers after a self-described BDSM, for those of you who don't know, that's bondage, discipline, sadism, and masochism expert from a clinic that offers trans surgeries was scheduled to speak at the school during a recent week dedicated to LGBTQ plus issues. In late March, parents started voicing their opposition to have, and his name is Maida Beach, speak. He's a representative of DAP Health, which is a medical clinic that offers gender transition surgeries, and this occurred during lunchtime in the cafeteria and was open to all students, if you can imagine. As reported in Real Clear Politics, and I'm quoting here, after looking into business websites and social media accounts, which obtained at least one photo of Beach engaged in BDSM and listed workshops he led in Kink 101 and examining self-injurious behavior, erotic play, and body modification, several concerned parents, you'd think there'd have been an avalanche, but several concerned parents contacted the high school and district superintendent's office. And just for comic relief, I have to smile when I talk about this. There's another law on the books that asserts that menstrual products must be distributed now in elementary bathrooms. In elementary. Assembly Bill AB 230 expands the Menstrual Equity for All Act of 2021, which requires all California public schools teaching grades 3 through 12, to provide free menstrual products such as pads and tampons in all women's restrooms, all gender restrooms, and at least one men's restroom, I repeat, one men's restroom, in the 2024 school year. The expansion accommodates all menstruating students, regardless of gender, to reduce, I love this term, period poverty, support student attendance, and keep students engaged in their education. Lastly, if a parent wants to opt out of this craziness and send a kid to a charter schools, which are much more sensible, AB 84 is in the work, and I know Lance Christensen is involved in fighting this one. It would divert millions.
It just died. It died.
It did die? Oh, okay.
For now. But it's dead.
Really? Okay, I stand corrected. But anyway, this would have diverted millions in state funding from charter schools and redirect them just to a lot of bureaucratic nonsense. And most impacted would have been charter schools that have hybrid schooling, homeschooling, and virtual schooling and independent study. But if that's dead, at least there is some good news. Thank you very much.
Very good.
Thank you, Larry. Sure.
After what he said, so this whole transitioning thing, if men really ever had to have a period, oh my God, they would not try to say that they were good. Oh my God. That's all I have to say. They would not say that they're going to transition. If they had to have a period, Okay.
Our next presenter is Leslie Sawyer, and a little bit briefly about Leslie. California Moms for Liberty State Legislative Chair. Leslie is a mom of 3, helped a team to organize a school walkout that kept almost half our country home? County home, okay. And follow-up events that ultimately led to legislation for the COVID vaccine mandate for schools to be removed. Has also spent the last 4+ years recruiting and training school board candidates and helping with campaigns. She is now state legislative chair, where she will track bills, thank you, lobby and create media campaigns to expose voting records of elected officials. Let's welcome Leslie. Thank you, Leslie.
Okay, hi. Hi. Okay, so, I'm loud. I'm loud without this. Grew up as a cheerleader, just wanted to be a mom. All I wanted to be was June Cleaver. A little dress, little apron, little apple pie. That's all I wanted in life. I grew up in schools. My mom was the high school librarian. Then my mom worked in the office. My stepdad was on the school board my entire life, coached basketball. The little girl from Remember the Titans yelling in the stands, that was me, but basketball. So I grew up on a school campus. I knew all the ins and outs. My parents were divorced since I can remember. My dad raised me in church and on Rush Limbaugh. So you would think I was made for this, right? But I wasn't. I wanted to be a teacher. I coached youth sports. I was on the board for youth sports. I just wanted to be a mom. I wanted nothing to do with this. But it's really funny because everything I've ever wanted in life, I start heading down a path, I make all the goals, I do all the things, and God looks at me and goes, ha, that's funny, and slams the door. Then he like concretes over it so that I can't even try, right? And then he takes me in a completely new direction. So that's happened over and over. So I stopped making plans. I have an 11-year-old. Unfortunately, she went through a Taylor Swift phase. I would rather listen to anything else. So I joke, my kindergartner, she has a I'm in my kindergarten era shirt because it's too cute not to do, even though it's a Taylor thing. But I love that Sonia said always say yes, because I joke with all my people that know how I feel about T-Swizzle. I'm in my yes era. If I'm asked to do it, I'm going to say yes. I was coaching youth sports when COVID hit. And I couldn't do it anymore. There was a person on our board who, her son was, he was a lot. I made my son be nice to him. I made him be friends with him. You know, he doesn't have a dad, give him grace, it's fine. Till I started seeing what the kid was actually doing. He's shoving my kid, he's giving him an elbow here, an elbow there. He's saying not such nice things. And I was friends with his mom. The four of us, we had I don't know if anybody's seen the new Full House thing, but they do like the wolf pack, woo, right? So we were that, right? That's how close we were. And her son kept shoving my kid, and I'm like, okay, just shove him back one time, tell him you're going to stand up for yourself, it'll stop. So we're at a football game, homecoming, high school football game, we're both on the youth board, and her son shoves my kid. That's the night my kid decided he was going to shove him back. The kid ran. Just like I knew any bully that you stand up to was going to do. The problem was, he ran to his mom. And his mom runs up, and in front of most of the football team that she is on the board member of, she starts cussing at my kid. Then she tells all the rest of them to go mind their effing business and sends them off, where she corners my kid against a concrete wall and continues to cuss at him. So he comes up into the stands and he's like, Mom, and he's crying and he's shaking, and I'm like, that lady better, my ex-husband, at the time he was my husband, he better find her before I do. Because in one motion, she was going to lose her nose and her fake eyelashes. I was not messing around. My ex-husband found her first. She left the football thing. I showed up to the board meeting that week and I said, she is off the board or I am. I was in charge of all of cheer. The board decided to keep her. So I said, okay, I'm done. I'm done with youth sports. All the cheer parents were like, please don't quit, please don't quit, please don't quit. So I was like, okay, I will finish out the season, but if she comes into my practice area, everybody's packing up, everybody's being sent home, and my practice is over. So I created a guard wall. She was not to talk to my kid, and she was not to come to my practice area. I finished out the season, and COVID hit. So I knew I was done with youth sports, and one of the moms said, hey, there's this group of moms, and they're doing this thing to try to get no COVID masks, no COVID vaccine, and I was like, okay, yeah, put me in, coach, I'm ready. I did not know that was my new door, right? So we were reinventing the wheel. We were trying to put together these organizations. We had a school walkout. 46% of our county stayed home. Then we did like a shoe, because they started doing secret meetings where they didn't include the public. They didn't like that we were starting to show up. So they did a secret meeting with all of the superintendents of our county, and none of us were allowed to go in. The superintendent of schools for our county sent out a packet to everybody for the meeting, and one of the things in it was an article about how right-wing extremist parents are a threat to education. So we then said we're going to run the candidate for superintendent next election. That's how we were going to get into politics. But we also said, we're going to be there. We're going to be at this meeting. One of the presidents had sent it to us, you get this for me type thing. So we had parents show up and put shoes they didn't care if they lost, in front of the thing. If you have a family of 5, bring 5 pairs of shoes. If you have a family of 3, bring 3 pairs of shoes. I run a conservative media company. We put out a bunch of podcasts. Kind of ended up in that because of what we're doing. But I was doing a podcast with somebody on education, and he played this clip during his podcast. This is about 2 years after that meeting. And it is some national news something. And he's talking about how he did a FOIA request. And the California vaccine for COVID against children was shut down, just taken completely off the books, never went through all the voting and stuff. Because a little group in Shasta County had made almost half their population stay home, and then had made every superintendent at that secret meeting, they wrote a letter, and we were pissed, by the way, when they wrote this letter. Under duress, we regret to inform you if you push this through, we're going to lose the majority of our students, blah, blah, blah. But the letter was weak. We were like, this is stupid. That letter circulated to the Capitol. And that saved California, and as goes California, goes the nation, from your children being COVID vaccines being required at schools. So I can't take full credit. My counterpart, Katie, her and her husband were like the big driving horses. I'm just the loud mouth they stick in front when they plan things. So, but in all of that, we were reinventing the wheel every step of the way. Then somebody said, why aren't you doing Moms for Liberty? We didn't even know what it was. We joined Moms for Liberty, and they have all the framework for everything we were doing. And it made it stupid simple. Oh, you're doing this at your school board meeting? Here's everything you need. Oh, you're going to host this event? Here's everything you need. Oh, you're doing a training on DEI? Here's everything you need. Critical race theory? You don't know what that is? These parents do. Here's everything you need. And it gave us the tools we needed to be successful. So we have ran school board candidates every year since. And last year, all but 2, by their own devices, that we endorsed won. The 2 that didn't were the ones who got in the weeds and liked to play with the trolls online. And when you do that kind of stuff, you hurt yourself. And so we had to pull our endorsement, but it was already election time. So they had lost on their... They didn't listen. Don't feed the trolls. It might be fun. It's not worth it. But yeah, so we also have been pushing the Parents' Right to Know policy. We passed it at one of our schools. They had all passed it, and then the state came out with AB 1955. And we're like, oh, this is fun. We've seen that before. I'm Shasta County. I'm from super North California. And we had canceled all of our Dominion voting machines. And they were like, you can't hand count, we're going to make a law against it. We're like, okay, well, so much for local control, right? So we had already been down that path, and I knew that. So when AB 1955 happened, I was like, okay, what do we do? So we're on a lawsuit. I'm on a lawsuit with Sonia, and super fun. I think we're headed to the 9th Circuit with that one. So, but I was just like, okay, they're going to fight us, we're going to fight bigger. I do not miss, ever, the California Policy Center's annual summit. I'm telling you, if you do one thing for yourself in a year, go to that. It's fun. But they teach you The left is so well organized. They go in there, they get to every politician, they have you heard some of these laws, we'll get into that a little bit more, but they make it sound pretty, right? I'm the bad guy. I'm the, whatever name you want to insert right there in that line, for wanting to be against this. I walked up and there's 2 protesters out here. I was like, hey, I feel at home. That type of stuff happens. We did a summit in Utah because the same thing happened. There was a teacher who went to school as a man, Mr. Whatever. I don't know if I'm allowed to say the name, so I won't. Then during a 3-day weekend in May, not even over summer, not even a long break, 3-day weekend, comes back as Mrs. Whatever. And the parents were in an uproar. They had no clue what to do. They were freaking out. They're like, what do we do? Who do we call? And I have a friend from high school who lives there, and she's like, hey, I know this girl. She's always posting this weird stuff on social media. Call her. So over Zoom, I was helping them. Go to your school board meeting. Here's your speeches. I wrote a bunch of speeches for a bunch of the parents. I said, this is how you do this. This is what you do. You ask for an ad hoc committee. You have a say in the policies. You start breaking down and start getting involved with the school politics. They knew nothing about it. They didn't even know they had a school board because they were a charter school. And the charter school, they didn't think had one. So we teach people a lot about civics because nobody knows. It's not being taught in school. That's one of those things that we want education to get back. Like Sonia said, 46 percentile, 47. No matter what number it is, I think I even at one event heard that we were in like 60-something. Those are failing grades, right? Our kids cannot read, they cannot write, they can't count back change. We have to fix that, and that starts by electing good school board members who know what they're looking for. I had been in education before I got into politics. There's less politics in politics than there is in education. There's less politics in politics than there is in youth sports. So if you can be a soccer coach, kudos back there, because I can't do youth sports anymore. You can do that. You can run for office. And when somebody's being not nice, you can tell them that because they're not a child. They're adults that we're working with, right? So it's freedom. If you have the personality to be in youth sports and education, you can run for politics. But there's only so much you can do at your local level. So I was the chair of Shasta County Moms for Liberty, and I said, well, why is everything that we do getting stomped on? Everything is 5 steps forward and 20 steps back, right? So I had to get involved on the state level. I'm now the state legislative chair for California. And we have some crazy laws. The last couple weeks, emotionally for our entire country, has been crazy. There's thing after thing after thing. But legislation-wise, it's been like whiplash. 84 died. But we had some fighters, literally like living in the Capitol, going to every legislator and saying, this is why this needs to die. That's the work that it took. And hats off to them, because the Freedom Angel ladies, they rocked that. They lived that. But what they do in legislation is they do this gut and amend thing, where they take a law that people are fighting against and they change it. And so they tried to do that. They came up with 2 other ones. SB 848 also died, which was how they were going to try to still pull off 84. SB 494, which is similar but I guess better, passed. But Marisucci, who's the one who pushes a lot of these bills, if Scott Wiener doesn't push it, Marisucci does. So if either of those names is tied to a bill that's bad. So he voted no on it. So we're going to take that as a win. SB 727 though, or AB 727 and AB 495, he talked about 495, both passed. Those are on Newsom's desk to be signed. That phone number, especially for all of you on the live stream, everybody here, 916-445-2841. Call that number. Tell him he needs to veto it. Tell him if he has any ambition of being the president of our country, maybe he shouldn't continue to burn down California. We don't want people. Yes. 916-445-2841. So AB 495 we know is unsafe because that is a human trafficker's dream bill. That is also your kid's mad at you and your kid wants to go live with Susie's mom and your kid can go have Susie's mom sign a paper, come pick her up and your kid no longer lives with you, right? But the other one that's dangerous and isn't getting as much publicity, and I know my time's up so I'm going to wrap up, is 727, which is also on his desk. That one has the Trevor Project phone number or website, one of the two or both, on every student ID for junior high and high school starting July of 26. The Trevor Project, if you don't know about it, is supposed to be a safe place for our LGBTQ community to go to for counseling. I just did a huge event in Northern California where we raised money to turn a prison into a refuge sanctuary for women and children who have been in human trafficking. And all the speakers who have been fighting human trafficking on the national level, some of the biggest names in our country spoke. And so many of them said, the Trevor Project is where they get these kids. They get in these chat rooms, unsafe adults who are not vetted. There are no safeguards, there are no guidelines. Unsafe adults get into these chat rooms and take kids over to other social media platforms. They get in there and they talk to other kids. They get in there and they pull, these unsafe adults pull the kids out, and that's how your kid gets trafficked. So, also, Cowboy is up front, and he has been writing our legislative stuff in California for moms to believe. So everybody, he's a good man. He's there all the time. But if you think it's crazy that I went from Reading to here for this event, he lives down here and goes from here to Sacramento all the time. So he deserves a hand. Thank you guys, and vote for Sonia Shaw.
Thank you, Leslie. That's wonderful.
Good job, Leslie.
Absolutely. I want to recognize we have a special guest with us today. You know, how many mayors have we had in the last 40 years? I think it goes way back. We have someone very special with us today. She's known as the Mother of Watts, and every mayor, when she speaks, the mayors listen to her. Let's welcome Sweet Alice. Recognize Sweet Alice. Okay, moving along, and our next presenter is Russ Lesser, and Russ has also been a friend of the Settlement Project from the beginning. So Russ was raised in Manhattan Beach, close to the water, and he remembers body surfing and riding waves on inflated pillows. I never tried one of those. Russ in 1962 struck up a friendship with Bill and Bob Maristrell, legendary brothers who owned a shop called Dive and Surf in Redondo Beach. At that time, Russ was attending California State University at Long Beach with the aim of becoming an accountant. They became friends. They told Russ that when he became a CPA, they would give him accounting work. Russ recalled they did in 1966. Years ticked by, and Russ got involved in civic affairs. He was elected to the Manhattan Beach City Council in 1978, and then again in 1982, served as mayor for 2 years, and was also elected to be a member of the 66th Assembly District Republican Central Committee. He has been a supporter of Tech for America and a strong advocate. Teach for America, but there's some tech in there too, isn't there, Jack? And he's been a strong advocate for public schools in Manhattan Beach and elsewhere. Let's welcome Russ.
Come on, Russ.
Oh, there it is. Thank you. Whoop.
Right here.
Thank you. At first, I'm wondering, why am I here? And I figured, well, maybe I'm the only token male invited. And then Larry showed up. Okay, well, that's not it. Well, maybe I'm the only person here that's not involved in education. So that must be the reason I'm here. And my background is I was raised in Manhattan. My grandfather actually bought the house I grew up in Manhattan Beach in 1917. Paid $1,000 for it, it's close to the beach, and for years he complained he got ripped off. And, I haven't checked real estate lately, but I do believe I could make a profit if I sold it. And I got involved in the community because my wife and I, we just celebrated our 60th anniversary, and we're very proud. We have 3 grown kids. Our oldest son is an assistant U.S. attorney. Our youngest son is a neurologist, and our daughter in the middle raises German shepherds and trains them for police work. So we're real proud of them. We've got 6 grandkids, and they all live within 15 minutes of it, which is great. And I think one of the reasons is I saw a bumper sticker that says, money isn't everything, but it helps keep the kids close. Anyway, I'm going to digress a little because we live in very frustrating times in California. And serving on I was elected to the 66th Republican Assembly District in 2020. And it was very frustrating because I did an analysis of the 2020 election in California. And I think there were either 10 or 12 ballot measures on the ballot. And in our area, the 66th Assembly District, we voted the Republican position on 10 out of the 12. And then we voted all Democrats in office who would put this stuff on the ballot that we can vote against because we don't believe in it. And it's very frustrating because people tend to vote their brain on initiatives, but they vote their tribe, and somehow we need to change that. So anyway, I was asked to speak, I think, because I got involved in the education system when a bunch of parents came to me and were complaining about what was going on. Because I was raised in the Manhattan Beach school districts, and I got a great education. And I think I went through the entire education without learning what political party my teachers belonged to. They kept it impartial, and you learn to think, not to what to think, you learn how to think. And so I got involved by some concerned parents who were complaining about things that were going on in the schools. For example, one parent said, this kid came home and said that the geometry teacher was ranting about how Thomas Jefferson was a white supremacist slave owner and was a bad guy in the geometry class. Another parent came in and said in the 8th grade English class there was this book called Gender Queer. And I saw a copy of it. It's got pictures of 2 little boys having oral sex in the middle. In 8th grade, so this was very frustrating to me. And my wife and I had gotten involved in establishing an education foundation. We helped kick off the endowment fund with a pretty good contribution. And so I called the chairman of the Ed Foundation and I said, I'm really concerned about what's going on. And after we had a very unsatisfactory talk, I wrote her a long letter. In fact, you see the big pile of paper over there is the history of my project that I had with the school district. So I sent her this long, convoluted letter about what I was concerned about, and they set up a meeting with the school superintendent. And that was also disappointing, because they didn't answer anything. I had a whole list of questions. The book Gender Queer, is that appropriate in an 8th grade class? Yes or no? Well, the answer to that was, well, it's in the public library. Well, that's not an answer. I don't care if it's in the public library. The parents can decide what they want their kids to read, but it's in the classroom sitting on the desk. All sorts of questions like this. I got 0 answers from the superintendent. So I wrote him a big letter. And I got back a nothing answer. And so I sent another response, and that didn't get much of an answer. So we said, okay, we got to change the school board. So we got a really good guy to run for school board, named Mike Welch. And he got sabotaged and he lost. But Mike's here today to explain what he's going to do about that. So Mike,
thank you, Mike.
Take over. By the way, before I give it to Mike, times have changed a lot, because when I was on the city council for 8 years, we always had a Republican businessman majority. And for most of it, we had 5 Republicans. So times have changed in our town, not for the better. But I think you'll find what Mike is doing is extremely interesting. So Mike, like many of us, he was distressed. He was going to run for the school board. He lost. But his motto is, if you can't join them, beat them. So he spent the last 2 years developing a classical school. And he's going to talk about what his ideas are. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Russ. And I'd like to start off by saying thank you to everybody that's on the panel. I mean, what you guys are doing is so exemplary. And I tried doing what you're doing, but I'm older than you, and I decided to take another path. As Russ said, I ran for the school board in Manhattan Beach in 2022. And as a brief aside, the same superintendent at MBUSD called me into his office, as he did with all the candidates, and we had a nice little conversation. Then I talked for about 5 minutes on the issues that had led me to run for the school board. And we all know what they are. And so I sat there for 5 minutes explaining my position. I stopped and I looked at him, expecting a response to one of the points I had made, and he said, "So what kind of music do you like?" And that was, that's when I realized, you know, they don't want to change, and I wasn't up to the fight. So I said to myself, you know, I'm retired. I just can't sit around and do nothing. Amen. And there has to be a better alternative. You know, what is working in education? Again, I admire you guys. It's a fight that needs to happen. We need to change what's going on in public education. But I thought, what is being implemented successfully around the country? And did a deep dive and got into the world of classical education. And probably most of you have no idea what that is. I didn't know what it was at the time. But I haven't met most of you in the room, but I can guarantee you, if you were to design an educational system for children, this is what you would come up with. It's been around for over 2,000 years. It's the fastest growing segment in education nowadays, where public education is decreasing, classical education is growing. To paraphrase Plato, the highest goal in education is to be good both intellectually and morally. And that's really what classical education is about. You know, educating the students, building good character, learning the importance of citizenship, and every one of these things that we've heard about today, the horror stories, none of them will take place in a classical education classroom. So I'd like to introduce, we stole the very best head of school that we could find. David Jackson has been a classical educator for over 20 years. He was at a school in Indiana, Canterbury School, which was one of the top top schools in the Midwest, and we're thrilled to have him, and he's going to tell you a little bit more about classical education. So thanks.
Thanks, Mike. It's an honor to be here with all of you. It's an honor to be the founding head of school at South Bay Classical Academy. And I'm here because I share Mike's passion and his vision. I believe that classical education is the way forward for our children. And as we know, sometimes we have to look to the past to do what's right for the future. And I'm very proud to be a part of this school and of this movement. As Shakespeare once famously said, brevity is the soul of wit. So I'm going to try and be very brief and summarize for you what I feel are the most important parts of classical education and of our school. Classical education is about exploring the full range of the human experience and about human flourishing. And we believe in doing this through reading the great books and the great conversation. So what does that look like for our youngest students? By the way, we will open as a K through 5 and add a grade level every year. So what does that look like for our littlest ones? Well, it means classical children's literature, like Anne of Green Gables and the Chronicles of Narnia and Charlotte's Web and Pinocchio and things that we might have read in school, these tales with great moral imagination to them. As the children get older, it means reading Homer and Shakespeare and Milton and James Joyce and Ernest Hemingway, and these great challenging texts that we might have grappled with in school. And it means reading them and annotating them and having great conversations about them, which animate, again, the full range of the human experience. Classical education is civics education. What does it mean to live in a democracy? What does it mean to be a citizen in a republic? What does it mean to know the Constitution? These are not questions that students in a classical school will ask. This will be part of the curriculum from the start. Even in the earliest grades, we believe in teaching active citizenship and raising good citizens. A classical education, as Russ alluded to earlier, teaches students how to think and not what to think. Plutarch, a great Greco-Roman biographer, once said, education is not the filling of a vessel, but the lighting of a fire. It's about students being able to be confident in their opinion, unencumbered by the opinions of the adults around them. We have already heard so many stories of teachers indoctrinating students and giving their opinions. That's not appropriate for teachers to do. Pedagogy means the leading of the child, and we have to lead them to develop their opinions confidently, and that's going to be a great part of our project. And finally, as Mike alluded to, a classical education is not only about their intellectual foundation, but about their moral foundation, character, virtue, being good people in the world. And so we're excited to present South Bay Classical Academy to you. We need your help. We need your help in spreading the word about our school. If you know of parents who have young students in the South Bay, we'll be opening next August in El Segundo at a great location. And please come by our booth, our table there, grab some of our information. We'd love to talk with you further. But thank you for this opportunity to share our mission and vision with you today. Thanks.
Sure, Russ. Absolutely.
For years, for decades, people moved to Manhattan Beach because of the quality of the schools. And I did an analysis, and up through 2010, over 90% of the kids of school age attended Manhattan Beach public schools. This last survey showed that in the 60% that are now attending Manhattan Beach schools. People are homeschooling, they're moving to private schools, they're moving to charter schools. And I think this is going to be a great success with what they're trying to accomplish. Anyway, thank you.
Okay, making a little bit of an executive decision because we're running a little bit long. We're going to have time for Q&A, but most importantly, we've got our keynote speaker coming up, Dr. Frank Kaufmann. So we promised you that we would give you a little break. Does everyone need a little break? Yes. Okay, we're going to have time for some refreshments. If you need to use the restroom, we'll take about, let's see, how about 7 minutes, 8 minutes? And 8 minutes, okay. And by the way, for our panel, if you would like to, because Dr. Kaufmann is going to have some slides, and our staff can help you, we're going to move some of the chairs around so that you'll have a good view of the screen. Maybe over here on the right-hand side. So we'll take about a 7 to 8 minute break. Thank you.
Do you need keys to open up your slideshow?
Okay, everyone, we're going to continue our program. If everyone could take their seats again. Okay, we're going to begin. We're going to continue with our program. If everyone could take their seats. Thank you.
Of course you are. How are you?
Okay, this is an exciting part of our program. We've had a lot of excitement so far, but we're not over yet. You know, I know a lot of you have traveled long distance. Who's traveled the longest distance? Let's see. Who's come down? Where did you travel from?
Boston.
Boston, Massachusetts. All right, let's hear for that. Does a settlement project...
Who drove the longest?
Does a settlement project bring people here from far and wide? I will want to introduce now... Okay, everyone, if we could all take our seats, please. Thank you. I would like to introduce a very special guest, of course, who is the founder of the settlement project, Dr. Frank Kaufman. Now, I didn't know, Frank, I thought you had traveled the farthest distance from... Frank came from New York. There's one person that came a little bit farther from Boston, but we're still going to give you a lot of credit, Frank. You know, I first heard from Frank, I think it was 2021, Frank, when we talked first time, and Frank called me, and he had something burning in his heart, in his feeling about America. And when we had about an hour conversation on the phone, I told Frank, I'm in. This is it. We've got to do something to help save America. And since that time, I think this is maybe our 5th settlement project event here in Southern California. There's been settlement project events in all parts of the country, in Washington, D.C., in Florida, and in Ohio, and also in San Francisco. So it is spreading, it is multiplying, and Frank and I were talking a little bit earlier, And we agreed that the tragic event that happened a couple days ago to Charlie Kirk, it feels like a turning point, a tipping point. And a book by Malcolm Caldwell called The Tipping Point. It feels like that. This morning I woke up and I saw on the news there's big protests in Seoul, South Korea right now as we were talking, and people were holding up signs, "We are Charlie Kirk," in South Korea. In London, all around the world, people have been touched by this in a very special way. So I'm not the keynote speaker, Dr. Frank Kaufman is, and I'm going to read Frank's biography a little bit, so you know a little bit about Frank, and he has a very special presentation for us. So Frank, obviously, is the president and founder of the Settlement Project. He's worked in the area of international relations and peace mediation for 42 years. His peace missions have included negotiations during the Gulf War, work in conflict zones in Israel and Palestine, India and Kashmir. And I know Frank has traveled to over 100 countries in the world. I think he's lost count of how many countries he's been to. He has provided service in refugee camps in Croatia and Eritrea, Ethiopia, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, mediation in revolutionary centers in southern Philippines, Sri Lanka, and elsewhere. Dr. Kaufman completed his doctorate studies at Vanderbilt University, and he's also widely published as a well-known speaker on social, cultural, and political dimensions of current affairs. He is the editor-in-chief of the New World Encyclopedia, a widely used, values-based general knowledge encyclopedia. And under his editorial leadership, the Peace Journal, Dialogue, and Alliance was named one of the top 10 journals on peace mediation by the independent panel commissioned by ATLA. In 2010, Dr. Kaufman was awarded the Visionary of Peace Award in Ireland, and Dr. Kaufman serves on boards of several international peace organizations. Let's please welcome Dr. Frank Kaufman.
Thanks very much, Ray. Happy to be here. To start, I'd like to say that I'm honored to be in the company of this panel. Political figures love to visit military installations. They love to go to places of war and greet the soldiers. This is an elite fighting force, and I feel like I've come to some barracks on an international campaign. You're in a war, and these are the warriors we've heard from today. What I'm about to, more closer, huh? All right.
If you want to use a hand mic, use it. Right now we're not getting a signal for some reason.
Yep.
I can show myself a little bit too.
And also the presentation.
Keith. Presentation. I'm sorry? Presentation?
I understand. I'm looking here.
Oh, got it.
So, if Keith cannot find the presentation if any of who's spoken so far has more to say, I'd like to sit down and keep listening to you because I do not want to try to wing this. That's a difficult moment. That's too bad. Okay, so this is my first comment, is my gratitude to be among you, especially for the fight you're fighting. The second thing was about the presentation, and I'd really love to see it. Louder. Thank you. Oh, good. Thank you very much. I'm greatly relieved.
If you just put the thing down in the bottom corner.
Bottom right, yes.
Yeah.
Over.
More. Two more.
Yes. Good. Thank you, Keith. So here I am talking about warriors, and I'm sitting here scared to death. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I don't mind being in a rough neighborhood once in a while, but to have to speak. Okay, and so, all right. So what will follow is a lot of information in a short time. Don't feel the need to try to memorize it. We'll be together forever. I'm here. If there's something you didn't get, give me a shout. We have work to do. Every slide has hours of research behind it. It's a superficial touch on the information that goes into it. So let me see. Okay, so that's the story. So watch it with that. Relax. Don't feel pressed to get everything. There's a lot of information in a short period of time. Okay, so I regard our current situation as a war, as a literal war. Okay, it's a war against our children and against our future and our country, our republic. So there's no other way to understand what we're involved in here. So this presentation, I've created 5 short parts. What is war? Different types of evil, war at the level of ideology and culture, the modern history of misplaced hatred for God, and establishing good. Those are the 5 parts of what I'll talk about now. What is war? War happens when there are enemies who seek to ravage a non-negotiable in our lives. War happens when we must defend treasure even at the cost of our lives. So the treasure is our children, the treasure is our country, and we here have come to the place where we no longer have the option except to fight at the cost of our lives. I happened to stumble across a little piece from James O'Keefe this morning, staring at my phone or social media. He said, what is your price? Is it $1 million? Is it $10 million? He says, if your price is not your life, you're for sale. And he said, truth seekers have no other price as the price of your life. And I think I didn't catch the whole piece, but it must have been in the context of Charlie while he was making these comments. But he himself, of course, does his work at the price of his life. So that's where we're at. Okay, that's where we're at. So when you have enemies that are at war with you, there's 2 types of enemies. There's enemies without. These are foreign enemies. And there's enemies within. These are domestic enemies. Enemies without, foreign to our country. Of course, they've infiltrated, but this is the Chinese Communist Party and militant jihadist Islam, especially state-level actors. They are the enemies of America. They are anxious to see its collapse and demise. The battlefields for enemies without are military strength and the designs of diplomacy. This is how you either seek to conquer or remove enemies. Enemies within are people who are invested in ideological capture of institutions. That's what we are in a war with, and the battlefields there are security, namely domestic police and security for our communities, politics, law, and culture. These are the 4 arenas in which people at war, in terms of domestic enemies, conduct their affairs. What we've heard this morning are people who are involved in war in these particular areas, especially politics, law, and culture. Schools are a kind of a middle ground. We've heard from one of the speakers that schools are more political than, even sports teams more political than politics itself. But that's where we fight our war. The Settlement Project seeks to fight the war at the level of culture. And of course, schools are this kind of middle ground between both culture, law, Politics? All right. What is our war? What is the war of the people here in this room? It's an attack on our children, attack on our families, our culture, and our homeland. It's not... Okay, I'll leave it at that. That's our war. Okay, the second part of the 5 parts that I wanted to teach is, what is the nature of evil? There's 2 different types of evil. There's criminality, and there's being possessed or in a delusion of a false ideology. Criminality is, strangely, although most people don't think of that, the lesser of the 2 types of evil. Criminals know they're doing wrong. People seek to catch them and imprison them, stop them from doing criminality. They seek power, but they're not courageous people. They act in the shadows. They know they're doing wrong. People who are delusional and possessed by errant ideologies, these people regard the pursuit of power as an obligation, as an expression of virtue. When these people are seeking power at the cost of their lives, they believe this is an act of goodness. That's delusional, and that is a serious enemy. Then you are facing a contender who you can't believe the degree of evil they're willing to perpetrate, and they regard themselves as good. This is a serious matter. And so when you're in the fight, like you guys, when you're doing battle, you see these corrupt SOBs. You see this raw pursuit of power. That's it's like milk in the water. It's an admixture. It's the ideologues that we really need to find out about. Why do people do what they do? Why do people push to have these books in schools? It's not just because, yes, it's because they're, I don't know, it's not just because they're bad people. They believe they're doing something good. What is that? What on earth could possibly be that? That's what this presentation and that's what the settlement is about. Understanding our enemy. Who are these people? How do they think? How is it possible for them to advocate the vile aggression against innocence? Your own children, our own children. So the images are these 2 fellows that were on murder trial and laughing throughout. I don't know if people saw that. That's just plain criminality. They might take a life, they might take 2 lives. The bottom is Yuval Harari, a techno transhumanist. The impact of this man to possibly cause literally millions of human deaths. And he's admired, he's worshipped, he's regarded as a great intellect. These are the people you have to watch out for. These are our enemies. And so what we want to offer is to try to understand who they are, so that when you're face to face with them and eye to eye with them, you understand them. You understand why they will act, what they'll do, and why they'll act in the way they will. So war at the level of ideology and culture is just to inform people in the battlefield, just to inform the warriors, for you to know who the deepest part of your enemies are. There's 2 sides to the ideological war in its most and simplest and most essential aspect. Either there is a creator or there is no creator. This is the starting point of left and right. This is the starting point of good and evil. This is the starting point of right and wrong. There's no further way to reduce this. There's no debate about it. One is correct, one is not correct. There's no way to further discuss the matter. If there is a creator, by implication, these things are affirmed. There is a purpose. No one creates without a purpose. God himself similarly. There is order. In order to create, you have to make the things do what they're supposed to do. In our particular case, The purpose of the Creator was to provide human beings with freedom, creativity, equality, meaning, compassion. These are the natural extension of the simple affirmation, there is a Creator. What human beings then pursue as a result of these being created in this way is harmony, a more perfect union. I watched at the beginning of our arrivals today so many hugs and tears and seeing old friends, and this is harmony. This is the feeling that human beings seek and desire. Our founders naturally noticed that. We seek a more perfect union. We seek those occasions more and more and more. If there is no Creator, it means that something is being put higher than the living God. In the case of the Enlightenment thinkers, human reason was put higher than God. In the case of the Marxist thinkers, matter is placed higher than God and higher than the human soul. And in the case of woke ideology, system is put higher than even human identity. You do not have any God-given identity. You are the fruits of a system. I'll explain that more deeply. It's deep. It's really important for us to know this, to fight the fight we're fighting. Once the woke claim is established that my identity is the outcome of what the system produces, the only thing that is available for me is resistance. The end for a God believer is this pursuit of harmony. The end for a non-believer is the pursuit of resistance, because the system creates creates oppression. The system creates oppression. So I'm an eternal victim. My power lies in the ability to destroy, the projection of social virtue, and the pursuit of quote-unquote social justice, for which I bear no responsibility for anybody else's. It's always the other that has caused the harm. This is the binary, this is the fundamental split in the nature of the ideological battle. So very briefly, there's three major moments of removing God from the position of Creator. In the Enlightenment, they worshipped reason. It began with I'll touch on this in a second, but basically, the corruption of the clergy turned the French Enlightenment thinkers against the clerics, which they extended to be against God himself, God. And so the Enlightenment thinkers believed that you could come up with human reason could come up with beautiful ideas of how to run things that did not have the ugly corruption of the church. The resistance ended up as the French Revolution. It wasn't, within not even 8 years, it ended up not so beautiful after all. It was the guillotine and blood running through the streets of Paris. Marxism was a reaction against the order of industrial greed. Their resistance was the Bolshevik Revolution. Instead of tens of thousands of people brutally murdered, over 100 million people were murdered under the influence of Marxism. Again, any time you try to understand all of reality without the affirmation of a Creator, you will put something in its place. Resistance will be the nature of the human response, and it will end up in unimaginable levels of human genocide. The woke revolution or woke ideology has not shown its capacity to destroy. But people who are attentive know that there are a great many people influenced by woke beliefs that think that approximately 2 billion people is the right amount of people. You're familiar with this. So if we think 100 million from Marxism, from materialism, was a lot to lose. If wokeism ever gains the day, if wokeism ever gains the power, the loss of human life will be far in excess even of Marxism. It's inevitable. In the same period of time, there was the reaction or response from believers, from the faithful. So each time there was an act of removing God, there was a Christian reaction. So at the time of, originally, Christendom of the medieval time tried to harmonize the ruling of human beings with the clergy and the kings and the clergy as sharing over organizing human affairs. That became impossibly corrupt, and the Enlightenment reaction was remove God out of the picture, put in human reason. In response to that, so with the corruption and failure of Christendom, the response to that was the Reformation and Counter-Reformation. I'll touch on that. At the second time, after the Marxist attack on human life, replacing God, there was a reaction of Christian social awareness. The end of colonies, the rise of women's rights, the end of slavery, the rise of racial equality, etc. There is yet, just as there was a remove God movement, there is yet one more act of Christianity, one more act of believers that's needed to meet this more sophisticated philosophical and ideological movement. Wokeism is more sophisticated and more difficult to disprove than Marxism. Its potential harm is greater, and the call to Christians and believers is greater. And that's what we are, that's what the settlement exists to invite and to advocate for. A rise of Christian and spiritual and religious stance that is greater than the final philosophical attack on God and human beings. Okay. So when Christendom collapsed, widespread corruption of the clergy, there's a reaction. It causes anti-clericalism, the French Revolution, rationalism, and humanism. Reason and human beings are greater than God. It ends up in the French Revolution. And so, let me see. Yeah, that's what I just said. It moves from philosophy to ideology. This is the second thing I'd like us to pay close attention to. Rousseau wrote this kind of elegant and kind of love of nature book, Reveries of the Solitary Walker. Kind of walking around the pond and enjoying nature, and it was a big part of rationalist thought. They thought this was the greatest. The mean church and the corrupt priests and the tithes and the corruption. It's all true. And so with human reason, why don't we just care for each other? Why don't we just love each other? Why don't we just love nature? We can figure this out. We don't need the evils of a church. Within less than 8 years, you're trying to walk to work, you're trying to walk your kid to school, and there's skulls rolling in front of you, the guillotine, and there's crowds cheering and delighted, not unlike social media today with the loss of our beloved brother Charlie. The French Revolution was a bloodthirsty rage against what they thought were the evil ones. Anytime you replace the authority of God with human authority, it always ends the same way. And this is where this fight stands today, and why we gather and why we try to introduce some thoughts on what is our next step, what is our final self-manifestation that will put to rest once and for all those ideologies which sound sweet but always end up in unimaginable ugliness. So the response to the Enlightenment was the Reformation. The Reformation it was a new Stufe, a new level, a new manifestation of Christian life. It brought the more direct God-human relations. The printing press, the Gutenberg Bible, the Bible in the vernacular. You were removing one step between us and God. This was the Reformation. And the Counter-Reformation of the Catholic Church also reformed the Catholic Church. And they too became a community with much more access to God. So in response to I'll use the term, satanic perversion of tempting people with this nice feeling and liberate from the oppressive church, created this violent, bloodthirsty crowds in the streets. The Reformation responds with kind of, God will not be defeated. And they didn't make a Christian army to go roll over these people. What they did was increase the God-human relationship. As a result of that, what happened to Western civilization is remarkable. There were massive advances in human knowledge. There was massive prosperity. It's Weber, the Christian sociologist, Weber talked about the Protestant work ethic. All kinds of wealth was developed. Modernity, the missionaries brought all kinds of hospitals, medicine, schools, roads, etc. What happened as a result of the stepping up and purification and increase of Christian life is remarkable. What happened in the world, and all this is based on increasing God-human relationship, and so humanism and rationalism declined. It declined, but tragically, all that wealth, all that progress, all that modernity, tragically, the inheritors of that, the American industrialists who presented themselves as the fruit of Christian life, became very corrupt. There was what I call social stratification, unchecked economic power, and once again, the reaction is placed against God and against the human soul. And so, despite the beauty of the Reformation and the flourishing of the Reformation, instead now what happens is that the American experiment, which we know is founded by God, the living God, it says so, our documents say so, but America's wealth flourished to the extent that the Christian church could not keep in check the extreme degree of economic greed and social stratification. Thus, so rises Marx. Again, just a philosopher. Labor theory of value. What was it? Dialectic. The dialectic.
Materialism.
What is it? Dialectical materialism and historical materialism. He's a philosopher. Philosophers never do much harm other than just have bad ideas. They're self-absorbed. They're bothersome. Once again, philosophy becomes ideology. You go from workers' paradise to 100 million dead, killed, gulags. If anyone is old enough to have ever been in a communist country, it's oppressive beyond imagining. It's suffocating. Even a day there, you feel your humanness being sucked out of your soul in communist countries. But it sounded very nice that the workers finally have fair pay and solidarity, and they run the factories. This one of the things I want us to ponder today is that so far wokeism is primarily manifest as a philosophy, a sick and bizarre philosophy. I'll explain a little bit about it. in response to Marxism, all the critique, all the hatred of God, all the militant atheism that was manifest by Marx, again, Christianity steps up. Or again, you can say Christ steps up, or God steps up. And there's a new spiritual awakening in Christendom, in Western civilization, where some of the residual evils start to decline. The end of slavery, the end of colonies, the end of monarchies, suffrage, women's right, the women's vote, racial equality. I see so many videos of the 50s where, like, what did we see? Danny Kaye and Satchmo singing the other night. Remember that? Yeah. And then, or you see that film 42, with that manager and Jackie Robinson, and you hear the youngsters who know nothing of American history say it's a racist nation, and we grew up. I know racism. There is, it exists, but we were making so much progress. We were so close together, and still are generally, and with all of this. Even the power of Marxism, the power of Marxism, which had the capacity to challenge the United States, to actually take over 2/3 of world's affairs, still Christ won, or God won, or American won, or the godly civilization won. Again, Christianity stepped up with a response to all of Marx's complaints. So Reagan's Christian America. He didn't call it that, but each civilization manifests its spiritual roots. Defeated communism. But here's something, no offense to anybody. He didn't defeat communism. What he defeated was the military force of the Soviet Union. Communism was defeated economically and militarily, but not ideologically. And so this is why it's important for me to be here today and to be with you today. A lot of people think that the election of President Trump now marks the end of wokeism. It's a similar thing. That's why I want to at least call our attention to the ideological matter. Yes, he's defunding it. Yes, it's on the run. Yes, he's suing Harvard. Yes, he's suing Columbia. Yes, he's legislatively he's defunding the closing of USAID, the throttling of the Soros, corruption and funding of the evil. But when someone said wokeism is dead, wokeism is on the run, wokeism is over, I said lose the midterm elections and see how much wokeism is over. It must be destroyed at its root. It must be destroyed ideologically. And you guys know more than ever, the Californians know that it must be undermined as an ideological force. And this is the only thing I want to share with you. This is the only reason why I'm speaking, is that we cannot be lulled the same way post-communist America was lulled. Communism, the problem with communism is not that it's an economic disaster. That is a problem. And the human misery that caused, that is a problem. There's one single problem with communism. It's atheism. It denies God. It denies God. And so this was not addressed. And what happened after the fall of communism, and again, no offense, I don't want to be offensive to anyone, but to my feel, Christianity did not stand on moral grounds. It did not stop the decline of sexual morality. It didn't take a strong stand. I was the head of an Episcopalian church in my neighborhood. I was, it's called Warden of the Vestry. That church now might as well be a bacchanalian feast. Its flag is the trans flag that's of the Episcopalian Church. And this didn't happen overnight. It meant that with the fall of communism, the Christian and religious self-affirmation that declared that showed the superiority of a God-founded nation, it didn't follow through ideologically, morally. And so there's nothing greater and more hopeful than, to me anyway, I'll just say personally, than the reascension of President Trump to inherit the presidency once again, thanks to the American voters who were actually, apparently some of them were counted in 24 for a change. Anyway, but for us to believe that you can legislate away or economically drain away, or we cannot. And that's why we're working at the level of culture and working at the level of ideology. And the reason why I want to speak is to just offer you a few thoughts on how woke people think. What is the philosophical root of wokeism? Here is wokeism at the philosophical level. This might be my most important slide. Race, gender, and sexuality are socially constructed. Categories accessible only in individuals' lived experiences and social positioning. Identities are not fixed essences. They are socially constructed by power knowledge and narratives designed to dominate, humiliate, and marginalize. Everybody who you are fighting on your school boards who is advocating for the undermining of children's innocence, everybody who you are fighting who are advocates of DEI, of CRT, of open borders, the problem is we try to debate them, and we are talking about two opposite things. They do not believe there is any such thing as a black person. They do not believe there is any such thing as a woman. We have a Supreme Court justice that isn't able to identify what is a woman. It's not because she's an unintelligent woman. Forgive me for no. It's not, but they do not believe there is such a thing. So when our Declaration of Independence say we are created equal, it's the creation that they're denying. What exists, black people don't exist. What exists is the social system of the production of narratives for the pursuit of dominance that ends up with someone who holds a social identity. A social identity, my social identity is that I have been oppressed by things that people identify as my race. So we are not talking on the same playing field. There is no such original identity because that requires a creator. The rejection of God is so sophisticated in the woke movement. It will not allow you to claim that you exist. You are the product of social narratives. I don't know if this is too slippery, but is it too difficult? Is it too difficult? Okay, you get what I'm saying. You get what I'm saying. So when you're eye to eye with a school board person, and you're saying, how can you do this to a child? How can you possibly believe that somebody says that I was born in the wrong body, and the conservatives are saying that's a form of mental illness? They don't believe those categories actually exist, and that's where the fight is. That's where the fight is. If you have an identity, it means there's a God. And that's what they're that far down the line. The Marxists weren't smart enough. Oh, you're a capitalist, or you're a laborer. They didn't recognize that by giving reified, what means like embodied identities, that they come from somewhere. The woke ideology is so thorough that any single thing you want to say exists, they deny philosophically. Because if you say something comes from somewhere, sooner or later you got to get to God. They block God before you can even open your mouth. And that's why you'll have somebody sitting there at a congressional hearing testifying before Congress and saying that to call 2 + 2 4 is cultural, it's racism. It's racism. Because it comes out of the white Enlightenment thinking. They now cut you off at the pass. It's like a grandmaster chess person. You move like the game starts, you move your pawn, and he smiles because he knows you've lost. It's like that. Wokeism is at that level of anticipation. You'll never get to God. You can't even get to yourself. That's what we're facing ideologically. So, the key ideologies of wokeism are gender-destroying ideology, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Not because we don't like diversity, not because we don't like equality, not because we don't like inclusion. What they are saying is that there's nothing. You're not including women, you're not including black people, you're not including lesbians, you're simply creating a field in which what the system has created must be affirmed. Anything marginalized must be affirmed. Like the open border thing, it's not only just to destroy the electoral map. It isn't only that. It's a belief that there's no such thing as ownership. There's no such thing as property. There's no such thing as boundaries. There is no such thing. It's a fundamental denial of the nature of reality philosophically. The applied arenas of woke ideology are resistance, gender destruction, social justice, eco-terrorism, racialism, and censorship. Okay. So the final and fifth part of this little presentation I put together is what can be done about it. What would be our reformation to conquer the Enlightenment? What would be our American social era to conquer Marxism? What will be our Christian, religious, spiritual affirmation of God to conquer wokeism? What will be our next phase of Christian life, of Christ, of God, of our founders, of the founding of our country? This is what I want to look at now. The starting point for any American is the founding documents of our country. The U.S. Declaration of Independence, the United States Constitution, the U.S. Bill of Rights. That's all we got. That's what our country is built on. That's where we start. If we cannot find the resources in our founding documents, we got to found a new country. I don't believe that's necessary. The content of what's found in these documents is, A, there's a creator. B, human beings have an identity from our creator. And our identity is clearly enumerated. We are free. We are equal. We're sovereign. We're self-determined and pursue happiness. That's what we do. That's how we're created. We give consent to be governed. And we are created with inalienable rights enumerated in the Bill of Rights. That's our identity. If anybody wants to ask you, oh, what are you exactly? I'm created. I'm free. I'm equal. And I have inalienable rights. That's my only identity. All other identities are secondary. I'm a woman. I'm black. I'm tall. I'm short. I'm smart. I'm dumb. I'm a pain in the behind. These are all secondary characteristics. I have only one identity as an American. It's clearly enumerated. The rest are secondary, and they're made for the beauty of our interactions. Ideological war cannot be won at the axiomatic level. The word axiom means it can no longer be argued. That's why our founders said in the Declaration, we know these truths to be self-evident. Once you say something is self-evident, you can't argue to defend it. It's an axiom. Here's the whole argument at the axiomatic level. There is a God. No, there isn't. That's the argument. You can't get further than that. Human beings have an identity given by God. No, they don't. No degree of philosophical sophistication is going to win this war. Ideological battles cannot be won at the axiomatic level. The only way ideological battles are won are at the embodied level. For Christians, we talk about incarnation. Philosophy incarnated. The ideals of our country incarnated. So here's the argument of our opponents or our enemies. There is a creator, says the believer, says the American, says everybody in this room, says the founders of our country, says those who were ready to go to war against the British. Oh, really? If there is a creator, then why do people who believe that treat each other like crap? Especially others who say the very same thing in a slightly different way. That's the beginning of the rejection of, at the axiomatic level, when you say we're created by God with inalienable rights. You have to affirm a creator to affirm your inalienable rights. And those who struggle with that say, if there is a creator, why do the people who make that claim are so nasty to one another?
Because they're fascists.
I don't think so, Bob, but this is the question. This is the question. And the closer you get, like an ecumenical fight between Christians is almost worse than a fight between Christians and Jews or between Hindus and Muslims. So this is the challenge to anybody who's going to say I'm a God-fearing person. They're met with that challenge. The second thing is that human beings are created to be sovereign, ruled by no one but God, and free to pursue happiness. The challenge to that is, how in God's name can this possibly produce safe individuals who are not going to create marginalization? You're answerable to nobody, and you're free to pursue happiness. How is this not going to create marginalized human beings? That's the challenge to those who want to affirm the American, not dream, American reality, our lives. Ideological war is won at the lived level. When you're at axioms, there is a God, no, there's not. I have an identity from God, no, you don't. We're equal, no, you're not. No, we're not. At that level, the only place to fight that fight is at the lived level. So, the first one I introduced is, why are people treating each other like crap? Why are believers so harmful to each other, so harsh to each other? And I'm talking about a next step up, a version of God affirmation that wins over wokeism. At the lived level, our next step higher is victory in ecumenical love. It's a demand and an obligation. If we're going to be in this fight, we have to transcend our parochial differences at the denominational level. If we cannot defend our claims to be affirming of a creator. and victory in interreligious love. If someone says there's a creator, I may not get it. I may not get it. You're a Muslim, you're a Hindu. I don't get what you're claiming. But if you say there's a creator, I must consider you an ally, because those that say there's not are doing great harm. So the next higher version of that which will be victorious over the satanic ideological force that's wokeism must define itself with these new horizons and new challenges. Is that all right? Is that all right? We must. Say there's a Hindu. I'm a Christian. This Hindu seems to believe in every imaginable type of God. It's like turning on Saturday morning cartoons. I mean, what the heck? What the heck? You say, but listen, what do I know? What do I know? We'll see when we arrive before the throne. And so you and the Hindu friend arrive before the throne, and you say, see, there I was right. And the Hindu says, but look, God has many faces. And you say, no, it just looks like that to you in front of God himself. So give whatever believer, whatever breaks he needs or she needs. It's the only way we can create enough sufficient force as the affirmers of God, meaning, order, truth, harmony, compassion, love. That side of things, we have to do it right in front of us. So here's Billy from Southern Baptist trying to teach this poor Muslim woman the lyrics to the old rugged cross, and he's pointing to where in the song it is, and those tiny little words you can't even read anyway. And there's that poor Muslim girl trying to figure it out, and God bless them all. I love it. I love it. Okay. The ideological war, lived war, second part. How on earth can we produce safe individuals who are free, sovereign, ungoverned by anybody, pursuing happiness? I want to talk about what's the cartography and cultivation. I made up those words. Where cartography and cultivation of free, sovereign individuals pursuing happiness, and how are they not going to create oppression, exploitation, marginalization? How are we going to prevent this? Okay, on cartography, where are these individuals situated? They're situated in families. They're situated in families. That's where you are on the map. That's where you are on the map. If you're parents, you're there. Then if you're a husband, you're there. If you're a wife, you're there. If you're the younger sister, elder sister, younger brother, elder brother. This is the grid. This is the map. This is what produces safe individuals. This is the prism. This is how God's design, how America's design is safe. Because a person located there is already taught how not to harm people. Supposing one of your children is autistic, is he going to be all right in your family, or she? Absolutely, absolutely. They'll be just fine. Supposing one of your adopted children is Vietnamese or black or white, are they going to be all right in your family? Absolutely. They'll be absolutely fine. This structure, that it is the place that is designed to where free, sovereign individuals pursuing happiness do not create marginalization, do not create exploitation, oppression. They do not. Parents have absolute power. Little ones, they have no choice. But they're not oppressed in the family. So, sadly, some families, but. So that's what I call the cartography. Where are we located on the map? We're safe in people in families are not a danger. They're not a danger. And then on the cultivation, there's the generations. There's the grandparents, the parents, and the children. There's the inherited wisdom. There's the people of the present moment fighting their behinds off, trying to make enough money, trying to get new sneakers, trying to get their kids through soccer and everything else. They're on the front line. Their parents are helping them from the grandparent position. And the children are the future. So there's the next thing that in my view, what Christianity and what religion has to become, it has to grow in two things. It has to grow in a stronger and clearer affirmation of the family and not be wishy-washy about moral behavior, about human identity, about the obligations of husbands and wives. That declined. We didn't have the courage. We didn't have the courage. I don't want to be a guy up here with judgment in my, but I watched, over the course of past, few decades or something like that, after the 60s, I don't know any parent who thinks that their child isn't supposed to be sexually active as a teenager. It became part of common life. Pastors of churches, they don't think that's odd or wrong in a way. That can't be. A sufficient version or form or force of Christian and spiritual life in America must have the courage to reaffirm family. And the loss of Charlie, if there's anything we're seeing, he was kind of a birth of a Christian leader who wasn't afraid to say that. He didn't only speak of our salvation. He didn't only speak of his personal relationship with Jesus. He begged people to marry. He begged people to have family. It's very exciting to me because this is the Christianity that must become. It must become capable of loving every God-affirming person, and it must be capable of fully affirming that structure which God and nature produced that made it possible for God to risk creating human beings that are free, sovereign, and pursue happiness. All right, that's what I have to say. I really am grateful for your time and attention. They didn't get their chance. I can be among the. I can take it if you call it.
You want to take a couple? Does anyone have a couple questions for Frank?
Okay.
Okay. Yes, sir. Gentleman in the back. Real loud because there's no.
I have a question for you. In that list of those things that organizations, political, social, and so on, why did you not list religious in that list as well? Religious organizations that are roughly.
You're perfectly correct. You're perfectly correct. This was way back in the beginning, right? I said where we're fighting the fight, right?
Yes, sir.
And you're absolutely correct. It is in addition to the home of our spiritual life, it is a cultural institution. It's an institution and I appreciate that. And the next time I teach this, it'll be there. Thank you very much. And the gentleman, yes.
I did a documentary on COVID, and I'm a former pastor. I pastored for 23 years. My first book was on sexuality. I've been actively involved in researching many things, and the COVID thing was shocking. Your numbers, how many more people were destroyed. COVID was designed by Agenda 2030 to destroy 80% of the population of the world. It was spike protein, and we're still seeing people dying from the vaccine. My point, Jesus started with 11 guys. and within 400 years, changed the world. Family alone is not enough. All of us have to be involved in helping people know a God who is love. All of us have to be involved in making disciples, because 60% of America is Christian. If 10% of them made a disciple, America would be Christian in about 5 years. So our challenge is, what do we do with being spiritual? I believe it's our challenge to convert and disciple and teach the world a God who is love. Love is irresistible. Who doesn't need more love? That's what discipleship is.
Do you have a specific question for Frank? Because we have a limit of time. So real quick, there's a question.
Why aren't we thinking about what the church can do to reach the entire world? That's God's agenda.
Thank you.
Why aren't we thinking about that?
Thanks. Very quickly, I believe that the church is the home of families. But family is the fundamental place where God begins in a person's life, and then the home of the family is the church, is the religious community, is my view. Yes, please.
Can you speak more on Harari? I got this book years ago. I never finished reading it, Sapiens. Can you go more into detail the damage that individuals like Harari have done?
Yeah, well, there's a number of different places where the woke champions live, like Kimberly, I forget her last name, Kimberly Crenshaw. She's in the race issue. Harari's in the, I'm sorry? Intersectionality. Harari's in the transhumanism movement. So he basically sees the human being as just another piece of technology. And so that's another, he's mostly associated with the WEF, the globalist movement out of Europe, the World Economic Forum. But he is Israeli, yes. So it's a version that's most thoroughly and most fundamentally undermines the possibility of human soul. It's just a thing that can be augmented by technological augmentation. There's a rant. I picked him. I could have picked anyone. I could have picked Kimberly Crenshaw. I could have picked the heavy gender dysphoria people or something like that. But he's kind of one of the most scariest looking guys. So I put him. Okay. Yes, sir.
I want you to respond to this. Women that were up here, Sonia, Candy, Leandra, Barky.
Yeah.
There's a group of woke women that stalk them, and they data collect everything that they do and their connections. I actually sat down with one of them and had a conversation a couple times. One thing I got out of it was that they said they're very fearful of a theological nation, a theological world that they live in. I just wanted to share that. I don't know if you have a response to that. That is their huge fear, is living in a theological world. I heard that from one-on-one conversation, and I read it in their social media posts.
Yeah. You cannot affirm anything as having genuine existence. And theology is the strongest of all such affirmations. This is there. Nothing can be stable in order for the woke agenda to be. If anything is stable, that's why they divorce meaning from words. If anything is stable, that's what I was trying to talk about, the first chess move. And so the theological nation is the end of the line. It's the highest, strongest, fullest version of what they regard as the source of marginalization. This is there. Thank you. So now let me see.
Okay, one last question, Dr. Kaufman, is that okay?
Just one. I got to hear Brenda. I got to hear from Brenda. And maybe did you? Okay, maybe two if I may.
I have a short question. I'm a Harvard Law graduate, worked with the UN for years. The UN is a cesspool.
Yes, correct.
I find that people don't know that, and they still kind of back the UN. What you're talking about has been around for 30 years. It's not something new, but the fight is new. And I agree with what you're saying, but I do have to say, the church pushed a lot of people away. And a lot of people, the children, are starting to pay attention. But how do you suggest that we get our children to get back into church?
Yeah, it's a complex question. My view is that when we start to be involved in things that naturally resonate with a youthful sense of virtue, we can engage them in activity. If it's just pure classical church, it may not be the first step for them. But a community event in which all God believers are all giving their own kind of food or music or the like, something like that, would be a good stepping stone or starting point. It's just one of a million possible answers. Maybe people have better answers than that. Thank you.
That's a good one, though, sir.
All right.
That's a good one, sir. Even Mr. Jackson.
Then I feel good. And then there's Brenda, please.
So the California School Board Association has a document that says critical race theory defines race as not a biological reality.
Correct.
Okay, which is what you said.
Yes.
Now, I would think, now, when we bring this to black churches, Hispanic churches, or, anybody, I brought it to the Hispanic caucus for CSBA, and they were shocked to see it. I said, well, don't you take offense at that? That race is not a biological reality. So why do we even have racism? I mean, how do we determine? It's based on, like gender, based on your feelings and your perception? Or can I be racially fluid? Yes. Since I can be gender fluid, I must be able to be racially fluid. Why can't we bring this reasoning to show the lunacy of all of this? Mm-hmm. And I'm trying, but I just want to get to I would think that there would be a revolt in the black and Hispanic communities when they see that it's a facade.
It is a facade. It is that what's happened is that marginalized communities sooner or later you will have an experience that eats away at you. Somebody will say or do something to you. Women also. Sooner or later, someone will say or do something to you that is hard to digest. And same with racial minorities. But when they go to school, the accounting for that is draped in this destabilization of reality. And so they attach that, so the elder minority communities, they're not vulnerable to woke ideology. They know life. They know there's racism. They've suffered from racism, or we've suffered from racism. Women, we've suffered from sexism. But we know life. We know it's not everybody's like that, etc. We find ways to live nobly. But the young people in the universities, they're being taught, their experience is being defined in the philosophical system of woke destabilization of fluid reality. So this is what we're suffering against, or what we're facing. And so this is why, we're losing some of our friends. Thank you so much. We're so grateful for your presence.
I'm grateful to be here with you guys.
Thank you.
Let's a little hand for Sonia.
Thanks. So Brenda, I tried to struggle through that one, but you got me, right? It's how that experience is being defined in your formative years by professors who control whether or not you're going to get out of college or not. Yes, please.
Just one quick question. What are your thoughts on the dysfunctional families with the divorce and same-sex marriage and everything? But I'd just love to hear what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I think despite the need for thoroughgoing compassion, thoroughgoing embrace, thoroughgoing care to help and lift up, truth must be spoken. You can't help without truth. They have to be paired. And so I think there is a way of seeing what should be and not condemning that which hasn't managed to be it yet.
Okay, let's have a warm thank you for Dr. Kaufman. Okay, we have a few final comments. Do we have time? Okay, then we'll ask the panel.
Picture before we lose some of our...
Oh, yeah. Would everyone mind coming up to the front? We'd like to get a group picture. If everyone could come up to the front, and our panel members also to come around, and we're going to have some Q&A for our panel members. I'm talking to the audience, aren't I? The audience can come up.
Everybody come up quickly.
Everyone come on up. Don't be shy. Don't be shy. Some can maybe kneel down a little bit in front so we see our panel, please. All of our panel members can be standing right behind.
Too late now. They're in the back already. It's not going to be easy to do this.